Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Big Brother 21 postseason coverage. I'm your host, Aaron Armstrong, and I'm here now with the winner of Big Brother 21, Jackson Michie. How you doing, Jackson?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Should I call you Jackson or should I call you Michie? I think I already asked you this.
Either one, whichever one you feel comfortable with, you go with it.
Well, it's funny because I'm using my notes here. I'm going to be using my notes to interview you. And every season, I take notes every day on the live feeds because I do live feed updates. And I need to have a consistent name written all season long, because at the end of the season, if you make it to the final three, I do a search for your name and I write up notes for your entire season. And so very early on, when they were like Jackson, aka Michie, I was like, I got to just pick one and go with it. So
yeah,
I picked Jackson.
What did you go with? You picked Jackson? All right, perfect. We can go with Jackson. We'll go with Jackson.
All right. Well, we're here to talk through your winning game of the show. So let's get into it. Were you a fan of the show before you played?
I was a fan. I was not a super fan. I watched solely for entertainment purposes. After work, after school, things like that. I never watched the live feeds. I was never one of those people that could spit out every winner from every season and who got second and the order in which people were evicted. I was a fan of Big Brother for entertainment purposes, but I never watched it close enough to truly have a strong logic of it going into the show, because I never thought I would ever make it on the show. And once I got into the house, I was like, man, I really wish I would have paid more attention to the show, but it just never seemed like a legitimate possibility for me.
How many seasons had you watched before going in?
I started watching probably around Jeff and Jordan's season.
Okay.
And it would be like I'd watch, each season one or like 11, 12, 13, then I miss, 14, 15, and then picked back up again 16, and then missed 17, watched a little bit of 18, watched 19, watched all of 20. But so it was kind of sporadic here and there. And a lot of it had to do with, my schedule. Once I got into college and I would come home for summer, I was working 60, 70, 80, 90-hour weeks all summer. So, I'd come home, I'd be exhausted. TV wasn't really my priority during those 4 years of college. So the 16 through 20 was where I kind of lacked the most.
Now, one of the reasons I ask is because basically in the last almost a decade now, there hasn't been a winner of the show that wasn't a fan of the show prior to going on.
Right.
And that seems to still be upheld.
It still holds true. It still holds true.
Yeah.
And I don't think you could win Big Brother without having watched Big Brother. And if you have watched Big Brother and you are going on Big Brother, then there's got to be something about it that you like. So I don't think there could ever be someone winning Big Brother that's not a fan of the show. If you're not a fan of the show and you're going on Big Brother, then you're doing it for fame reasons. And if that's your motive, your strategy is not going to get you to the end. You know what I mean? So I think you have to be a fan of the show in order to win it, because if you're going to go through this process, you have to want it. You have to be fully invested. You can't half-ass your way through, haphazardly get to the end of finale, because 100 days in that house is exhausting. You have to want it. And if you don't, it will show and your game will suffer for it.
Did you apply for the show?
I did. So I moved to Los Angeles February 1st, and I was looking for jobs on my phone, and it was at lunch on February 10th. And I was scrolling through Instagram, taking a break from Craigslist and all this and that. And I was scrolling through my Explore page, and I saw an ad pop up on one of the pictures, and it said Big Brother. I clicked on it, and it was a $6 Uber trip away, and it had 45 minutes left before it ended. So I looked down at my watch, and I was like, all right, let's just go. And I actually have a video that I sent to my parents, and it's Casey, because it was at Jalapeno Pete's in Studio City. Casey was there for the casting call. It was the first casting call of the season. And I have a video of her leaving. I got there that late. I was the last person in line. And there's a video of me zooming in, and it shows Casey on her way out the door. And then it goes down and it shows my slip, like my Big Brother 21 casting slip. And it was just ironic because Casey won, and there I am. And I sent it to my parents, and I was like, "Guess what I'm doing?" And they're like, "Thought you were looking for jobs." I was like, "Yeah, but it was here, so might as well." One thing leads to another. I move into the house. Fast forward 3.5 months, and I'm walking out with confetti
And $500,000. So, I mean, in some
right.
ways, you were looking for a job.
Right. Yeah, I was. And you know what? 500 grand. Oh,
short contract work.
In California, that's not as much as if I would be able to clear under Tennessee, but it's still a pretty good take for a summer. I'm not complaining by any means. Very, very blessed on that end. So, and I got Holly, which is honestly the bigger prize in my opinion.
There you go. So you go into the house. What is your first reaction seeing the cast? One of the like most underreported, I think, parts of Big Brother is just like the luck of the draw when it comes to who is your cast.
Right.
Like, do you fit in with them? Are they people that you're going to be able to work with, or are you kind of the odd one out here? What were your thoughts going in?
So going in before seeing anyone in the cast, being sequestered and the months leading up to the casting process, still never being told that I was 100% a house guest. I thought that I was going to go in with a very big target on my back. And I would be looked at as a strong physical competitor, a strong social competitor. And I really wanted to downplay my mental abilities. I wanted to come across as the dumb jock. And I knew that there was nothing that I could say that would lessen that target. So I knew I needed guaranteed safety coming into week one. And I didn't really care what happened. I needed that. And people would always ask me, the first HOH, what are you going to do? Are you going to gun for it or are you going to throw it? And I said, gun for it 100%, because I know walking in that I will more than likely have a large target on my back based on my appearance. And it's something that I need because I have a 1 in 16 chance of going home. And I didn't go through this whole process to go home day one, week one. So going into it, I knew I would have a target, and my goal was to let my social strengths be what sort of kept me safe. However, man plans and God laughs, because when I walked onto stage, I see Jack and I'm like, well, shit. Okay. My whole plan's gone out the window. And we both looked at each other, and it was this moment of, we can either like fight fire with fire and be each other's biggest competitors, or we can work together. And without even saying a word to each other, we both got this vibe of, all right, let's work together. So then on stage, my strategy went from being a strong social competitor and letting my social game carry me through to painting a picture and a target on other people's backs that's always bigger than my own. And always fueling the fires of the bigger personalities, the louder personalities. Yes, I'm a physical threat, but when I saw Jack, it's like, okay, great. I'm going to make him look like a bigger threat. You know what I mean? And then once we moved in and we started talking to people, I started seeing loud personalities. Nick, Bella, Christie. Let me make them look like bigger targets. If Jack is going to be making himself a target, let me make him a bigger one. So if he's going to be loud and yelling in the house, I'm going to do the same thing and make him even louder. If Christie is going to be loud and, boisterous, I'm going to do the same things to make her louder. You know what I mean? So I know that I'm always going to be a target, but I just don't want to be target number one, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I have a community on Discord, and they created a bot that's called Jacksonisms. And so if you just type in Jacksonism, you'll get a random saying from you, like, man plans, God laughs.
Oh, yeah. So I've got a lot of them. That's a Southern thing. That's my dad in me for sure. It's a Southern thing.
So you came in, and right off the bat, camp director twist, right. And you volunteer yourself to be one of the candidates.
Right.
So the idea here is that I assume you assumed that you would be a target. It's better to be safe than not. You don't want to be going home on night one. And right. I assume you felt like you could get the votes to make it happen.
Right. And so being a server, being a bartender, being in sales, it was always be whatever your customers want you to be. And I knew that in order to get votes for camp director in the Big Brother house, they were going to vote for someone that they saw as a leader. So I wanted to come across as being the one who was willing to step up and be a leader. And if I was going to get votes, it was going to have to be mutually reciprocated in having their back. So everyone that I talked to, those 10 votes, I was very adamant about, yes, I'll do it. Let's go. I was very intense, very aggressive, which is just me by nature. But I wanted to fill that leader role and also let them know that, hey, we're good. And I saw camp director as an opportunity to it was going to force people to come and talk to me, and in a house of 16 people, it's a great opportunity to start forming relationships immediately and have them come up to me and, offer things or propose things that they can help benefit me. So camp director was one of those things where I wanted it, but I had to make it look like I didn't want it, if that makes sense. Because if I was super gun ho about, yes, y'all vote for me, no one would vote for me. They're like, why is this guy want it? It's a little sketchy. Red flags start popping up. So it's like, I had to play it off as I'll do it and I'll do a good job of it if I have to. You know what I mean? But I don't necessarily really want to. Who knows the punishments?
I will bear the weight of this responsibility.
Right. I'll be the martyr of this and I'll do it. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, give me this, please give it to me. Because I don't care about y'all. I'm here to win. Mm-hmm. And I'm not about to let my game's fate be put in someone else's hand. I want to have control and guarantee myself safety.
Yeah, well, it seemed like at first the votes seemed to be gravitating toward Jess, but you or somebody was able to pull the votes over to you. How did that happen?
So Nick was a big campaigner for me, and once he kind of got Christie, then it became okay. They're going to campaign for me, which is great because I needed to convince one or two people that I would do it and that they would vote for me, which was Nick and Christie. But I needed to convince the right people. I needed to convince the loud, passionate people that will voice things for me, AKA Nick and Christie. Because again, if I'm going around saying, vote for me, I want this, no one's going to vote for me. So I needed other people to do it for me. And I needed other people to rally the votes. And that's where Nick and Christie came into play and they rallied it for me. And that's what allowed me to be able to like, oh, shoot, I didn't want this, guys. I didn't vote for myself. I can't vote for myself. I'm sorry. It's banished for. I'd be like, none of us know each other. Blah, blah, blah. Sob story, pity party, woe is me kind of thing. When in reality, I didn't care. I was here to win and I needed to get through week one safely.
Mm-hmm. So I've heard that there was a deal made between the candidates who volunteered to be camp director that whichever one of you won, you would not put the others into danger of whatever.
Now let me clarify.
Okay.
The deal's vernacular is very, very specific here. It's very specific because it says we were sitting there saying we would look out for each other. At no point was it ever explicitly agreed upon not to banish anyone else. Because at the time when we were campaigning for votes, we didn't know what the repercussions were going to be. It was just, this is before we voted. Mm-hmm. So it was me, Jessica, Cliff, and David standing right by the wooden tree near the front door in between the living room and the door and the ladder. And we were talking about, us four, we volunteered. I think it's fair that we just look out for each other. Okay, that's fine. I'll agree to that. I don't know what your definitions of look out for each other are, but in my mind, y'all are my three biggest targets because you just volunteered for something that is very risky. And that exemplifies a lot of strength and courage and potentially something I should be worried about on a social and physical game level. If you feel confident enough in yourself to take on this responsibility and lead a house, there might be more to you than that meets the eye. So when people say that I banish David, Jessica, and Cliff because of demographics or surface level reasons, it was the exact opposite. In my mind, if you're willing to stand up for that role, there's something about you that separates yourself from the others. There's a certain level of strength and courage within you that shows me it might be dangerous for my game. So when they're saying, well, look out for each other, I'm going to agree to it, because just like in Big Brother, if an alliance is brought to you, you're not going to say no. But in the back of my mind, I'm sitting there thinking, if I win this thing, y'all are the first three that I'm putting up, because y'all might be the most dangerous three in this house.
Well, that was one of the first things that we saw on the live feeds, was actually Christie talking about that, and talking about it in a way that like what kind of person would make an agreement and then essentially back out of that agreement. It did seem to me at the time like kind of like a risky play to essentially, in some ways, go back on your word so early, but to your credit, it didn't really hinder you moving forward and people kind of forgot about it. Is that something that you were concerned about at the time?
It was, and that's where it came down to. After I knew I had to get blood on my hands, and that was okay because I know I could wash it off. Until David came back in the house, and I was like, well, shit, now it's all fresh again, and now we got to go back to this whole process, because after 2 weeks in the house and after banishment, I had mended things with Jessica and Cliff and Kimmy. But then David came back, having been the one that was banished. He was a lot harder to convince, and I never was able to convince him otherwise. And it was one of those things where it's like, yes, I have to make a decision that's tough. But the way I saw it, and the easiest excuse I could come up with, would be to, hey, y'all three are the ones that volunteered for it. And it was my legitimate reason. And it was the most legitimate reason that I had, but also the most understandable reason I could have. Because what other reasons would I have to pick for others? Nothing. We've known each other for an hour at most, because this week wasn't on the feeds. So we walk in, we're sitting there at the living room couch, and then bam, it hits. So it's like, if I were to pick four others, for what reason? What reason do I have when three of them come back in the house and they ask me why I banished them? What am I going to say?
I remember, so the reasoning for Kemi being banished on the show was that she said that she hadn't come and talked to you. After Kemi got out of the house, she tweeted saying, "I did talk to him. What is this? Do you know where
I've said this? Yeah. So when she says she talked to me, let me give you a very, very, very clear explanation of what she means by talk to me. I was in the boat room, and people were coming in one by one doing one-on-ones. Just bam, bam, bam. She never came into the boat room. She even says on the episodes, I don't feel a need to kiss his ass. I'm not going to go and talk to him. Like, I don't know if you remember that from episode 1. I'm sure you do. But I was like, she doesn't really talk to me. So I'm in the shower after everyone has come and talked to me in the boat room. I've given her her chance. She never did. I'm not going to go chasing after somebody and make them talk to me. Leave the boat room. I'm in the shower. She comes around the corner, starts brushing her teeth, and says, like, hey, so, like, I don't really know what to say here, blah, blah, blah. We just met each other, but, like, are we good? This and that. And I'm kind of just scratching my head. I'm like, your game is potentially in my hands, and you're not even going to, like, try and campaign? Technically, by definition, we spoke. We spoke for maybe a whole 30 seconds while she was brushing her teeth, while I was showering. Very haphazardly, showed little to no effort or care about being in there. So for me, it was like, okay, that's that end. And in the finale, I even said in finale night, when they questioned me about my decisions, I said, because Kimmy spoke to me very briefly while I was in the shower. You know what I mean? So, like, it was a very, like, I guess I'll talk to you if I have to kind of thing. So in my mind, it was like, if you don't care about being here, then shit, this makes it pretty easy to fill the fourth seat. So the three people I banished, the one person that doesn't really care about being here, easy, done. There's four.
There you go. Between the four of them, did you have any, like, vested interest in which one was banished?
David, 100%. So David, from the get-go, when he came in, he rubbed people the wrong way in a weird way. And again, this is not on the feeds, so people can take it for a grain of salt, whether they believe me or not. Other house guests can attest to it. They've heard it, whatever. 3-4 weeks after the show now. I'm not going to lose any sleep over people that say, well, there's no feeds to prove it. Everyone watching this, take it for what it's worth. David came in and he was just he had what I said it, quoted, shifty eyes. And he did. He was very, suspicious looking. He was watching people very intently. And he's a great looking dude. He's charming. His social game was fantastic. He was flirting with girls, but he also was very weird in the sense he kept asking like, hey, who's here that's single? Anybody single here? Hey, what girls are single here? So there's a quote of me saying on the feeds, like, well, unless David comes back and he's just going to like run a train on all these girls, because when he walked in the house, his biggest priority was talking to girls, flirting with girls, and he was asking who's single. And in my mind, I was like, dog, they were casting for Love Island. Why didn't you go on Love Island? He kept emphasizing how much he cared about the females and relationships in the house. So it was just kind of weird. And there was one time he was standing in front of the trash can, and I was like, oop, let me get behind your ass and like move the trash can. I was talking to him, and he like shot me a look. And I was just like, whoa, he's there, big fella. I was like, I was just shooting the shit with you. Sorry. You know what I mean? So I was like, so it was just off. He was just a little like, in my book, it just kind of rubbed me like in a weird way socially. And he just seemed like the kind of guy that wanted to come in and stir the pot. He's talked about the fact that he wanted to build his photography brand. He wanted to, take pictures and build a social media following. He's not really a big fan of the show. And it seemed like he just wanted to come in and like make things interesting and not play like the villain character, but just kind of like, just poke at people, you know what I mean? And just kind of see what happens and what doesn't. And that's the way it came across to me. So in my mind, I was like, this guy is very, very socially savvy. He's great with his words. He's an attractive dude. But his intentions might be to just kind of wreak havoc in the house. And if he's going to go after anyone, he's going to go after people that he sees as threats and targets. And I thought that I could be one of those people, truly. And he's physically well built. I was like, this guy's got all the boxes checked. Now, he might be the biggest threat to my game. So although I told him I wanted him to come back, and I know he didn't buy it, which is fine, but I did not want him to go back because I really did think that he was going to be the biggest threat to my game.
Mm-hmm. Well, he does end up being the person who leaves, which you were probably pleased about at the time.
Thrilled, but I knew I had said it all over the feeds. I was the only one in the house. I was like, we ain't seen the last of David. Mark my words, David's coming back. And sure enough, week 2, Ovi goes home, started to walk out the door, and then in comes David. And I'm like, all right, sweet. Here we go.
There you go. So after that is over, is it before or after the HOH competition that you, Jack, and Bella start to come together?
So that was after.
Okay.
That was after. And it was one of those things where Bella seemed very aggressive, and very set on like playing Big Brother. Jack and I were like, well, if she ain't with us, she's against us. So we need to try and get her on our side. And we were sitting there in the boat room talking, and then she left, and Jack and I both looked at each other and like, we did not like the way that conversation went. I was like, she's not like 100% bought in. Like, we might have to worry about Bella.
Okay. So can you tell me, like, because it basically Grateful seemed to be born from you and Jack, and right. it kind of started with you. It from my perspective at least, it seemed to stem with you and Jack, and then Bella, and then from there you added Christie and Holly
and Sis,
and then Sis and Tommy.
Yep.
So can you walk me through like the layers of how that got built?
Yeah. So it was me and Jack, and we immediately saw a lot of good things in Nick and Bella, and obviously they saw good things in each other. So they were in, and then Nick wanted to get Christie in, and Nick wanted to get Holly in. And then, Christie wanted to get Tommy in. And then Jack wanted to get Sis in. So it was kind of like a mutual, once it started growing, it just snowballed. But this is exactly what I wanted, because I wanted to have a large majority alliance. and I wanted to be inside of that large majority alliance. And I wanted to be with powerful players. And the reason being is because I didn't want these powerful players in the house, A, coming against me, but B, I wanted to be working with them so I could build the targets on their backs so the people outside of our alliance would not be coming after me first. They wanted to go after the head of the snake, the leaders of the group. So after we kind of formed, I took a step back and I wanted to take, a few weeks to let Jack and Christie drive this car because I knew it would crash at some point. And this is ultimately what brought Holly and I together was we hated being with Grateful, but we had to do it because that's where the numbers were. 8. David was banished. Ovi got evicted. It's 8 against 6. The numbers were with us, but we didn't like the style of gameplay. We didn't like some of the things going on socially. And Holly and I bonded over that. That was our mutual connection. We were the only two that were very realistic about life and the game. We were always saying, trying to give ideas and like, hey, we need to prepare for this. We might need to consider this. We might need to be wary that if this happens, then this might be a repercussion. And we would always get shot down, especially me. It would be like, no. We're going to bulldoze through the game. We're going to just run their train. Like we're just going to, continue to demolish this house. We're going to take them out and we're just going to get to 8 and we're all going to fight for it fair and square. And Holly and I would be looking at each other like, y'all are naive if you think that life works this way, especially in the Big Brother house. Like things will not always go our way. So Holly and I were developing relationships. And this is where the camp director thing ultimately was not a hindrance to my game because I was forming genuine relationships with people that I liked. Jessica, Nicole, Cliff, Ovi. I liked these individuals. Holly and I were doing the same thing. The others in our alliance didn't care. They were just, all right, all we need is each other. That's it. We're just going to, knock them out one by one. We're done. That's all we need. And Holly, on a personal level and a game level, did not jive with that. That wasn't our style. That's not the kind of Big Brother we wanted to play. But we had to sit back because that's where the numbers were. And I would say on numerous occasions, I'm not playing Christie's Big Brother. I didn't come here to play Christie's Big Brother. I came here to make moves. I came here to do this and that. So when I cast the rogue vote, Christie was like, well, you cast the rogue vote and you never told any of us what you were doing. I was like, yeah, because y'all would have told me not to. You know what I mean? Like there was stuff that I was doing that I didn't want other people's permission. I came here to play Big Brother. I came here to win. But unfortunately, because of the numbers, I was stuck in an alliance and Holly was right there with me. And we were frustrated, but we went with it because we had to. That's where the numbers were.
Mm-hmm. In week 1, you developed a relationship with Kat that was not very long lasting,
Right.
but it did cause some tension between you and Jack initially, I believe, because you confided in Jack about it and then he told Christie, right?
Yep. So Kat and I started very early. It was very quick. And I told Jack about it. And I was like, dude, don't tell anybody. Like, you're my boy. I trust you. I want to go to final 2. Like, there's nothing. I trusted Jack with my life, which was very obviously naive and ignorant of me because I'm loyal to a fault. And I naively thought that others in the house would be too, especially Jack. And I'm loyal until the sense of me feeling like I'm being betrayed or my trust is being broken. And at that point, then it's deals off. I don't care. And that's in life and in the game. So I confided in Jack about it. And next thing I know, Holly tells me like 2 days later, she asked me about it. And I was like, no, nothing happened, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, I know it did. And I was like, wait, did Kat tell you? And she goes, no, Christie told me. And I was like, how did Christie tell me? She goes, because Jack told me, Christie, Tommy, and Sis. And I was like, sick. Okay. Thanks, Jack. And from there, it was kind of like, do I trust Jack? Do I not? And so I in the game, showmances are a death sentence. So Kat and I did our best to keep it between us. And then once it leaked out to everyone I was working with, I was like, oh, shoot, they might consider Kat and I showmance, and this might be bad for my game. But then, because Kat was on the block for 2 weeks, the first week, the move-in week, that's not on the show, and then the second week, that's actually on live feeds, She was on the block for 2 weeks and she was spiraling.
Mm-hmm.
Psychologically, it was wearing her down. She wanted to self-evict all the time. Like we were having to talk her off ledges. It was exhausting and draining. And I was like, between that and the combination of people maybe associating us as a showmance, I have got to sever ties because this is a bad look. The whole reason why Kat was put on the block is because Christie was very much not a fan of Kat. Didn't like the energy Kat was getting off, and like Kat was anxious and paranoid and stressed out and just all over the place, roller coaster of emotions. And she was annoying a lot of people. So for me, I was like, between that, everyone disliking her, and the fact that people are linking us together, I have to separate myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you actually you talked with Christie about not wanting to be seen as a duo. And it really did feel like that conversation put a lot of fear into her about being seen as a duo with Jack at that point, which really caused her to spiral into this sort of.
That was something I was trying to do too, because they were very close. So it's like, I don't want to be looked at as the only duo. I want y'all to realize that other people, even though it wasn't necessarily true. I mean, yes, people saw them together. It was a very weird relationship between Jack and Christie.
Yeah.
Very. But it was like, I want them to also be scared because I don't want them to come after me because I'm the only duo in the house. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So that really, spirals toward, Christie going back and forth about whether or not she wants to put Kemi on the block. And, she doesn't really want to. She feels like Jack is pushing her into doing it, but so on and so forth. You eventually make up with Jack a bit. And it seems like you're both on the same page in the sense that you would like for Kemi to go home, but you also are cautious about pushing too hard.
Yeah. So Kemi, from day one, so after banishment, I walked out of the counselor's office upstairs and I looked over the ledge. I was like, can we just like eat a steak dinner or something? Because I didn't like having to banish 4 people. That really did suck because I know how bad I wanted to be there. But at the end of the day, I had to remind myself it's either me or them. And I walked over the ledge. I was like, can we just like get together, have like a family steak dinner and just chill for a little bit and like put this behind us and like just eat a dinner together and just like be normal. So Jack and I started cooking for the house, and we only get a week's ration worth of food. And I'm very big into fitness and nutrition and exercise, and I meal prep constantly, and I'm rationing out food. At no point did I ever say, I'm the one in charge for cooking. I'm the one cooking in the kitchen. I'm the one doing this. Y'all have to, get approval from me to cook X, Y, and Z. No, it just organically happened. And no one else stepped up to really cook until later on in the show when then Holly started cooking, she's the best cook ever. But I was cooking and Kimmy made a comment to Bella. And this is like night 1 or night 2. And Bella tells Jack and I this out by the pool. Mm-hmm. She tells Jack and I, she goes, Kimmy said that I see through the whole good old boy bullshit. You want to be this Southern guy cooking for everybody, trying to keep yourself safe in the kitchen, blah, blah, blah. Like I see through that. It's all an act. It's all bullshit. So in my mind, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I like to eat food. I'm not going to be a selfish asshole and only cook for myself in a house of 15 people where people can get annoyed and evict people in the smallest of living conditions and being a bad roommate. Forgive me for being considerate and trying to cook dinner for everybody after I just banished 4 people. I was like, seriously? This isn't an act. I'm just being like, I want to eat dinner with y'all. No one else is going to step up and cook. So we were just cooking. So it immediately pissed us off because then Kimmy would be very fake towards us and be like, oh, thank you so much, this and that. And it was just like, okay, you're going to talk bad about us behind your back, but then you're going to be nice to my face and you're going to compliment me and this and that, but then you're going to say these things. And it's like, what's going on here? So people online are saying, Mickey or Jackson disliked Kimmy and David because they breathe. No, there were multiple things that went in for me being suspicious of David. I was suspicious of David, and it had nothing to do with the color of his skin. It was the way that he was acting, the things that he said on move-in day. But of course, there's no feeds to prove any of this. I was suspicious of Kimmy and had a dislike for Kimmy because of the things she was saying on a personal level. that were unwarranted and for no reason and weren't true. It wasn't because either of them were black. That's nothing to do with that. They are African American, and I did not see that in my dislike for them. It was simply things that were being said and the way things were being handled. So it's like, because David and Kimmy breathed, that Michie disliked them. No, there were reasons for it. There were reasons that Kimmy kind of caught my eye and like made me kind of like, maybe Kimmy isn't on our side. Maybe Kimmy is coming after us, because Kimmy was very close with Bella, and Bella was telling us everything that Kimmy was saying. So it was like, okay, maybe we need to watch out for Kimmy. And Kimmy was much more vocal about Jack than me. And I knew she was coming after Jack more than she was me. But still, Jack is at this point, my final two, my biggest ally. And if she's coming after him, she's also inadvertently hindering my game from progressing. So it's like, maybe we need to get rid of Kimmy.
I think that that people might say that that there may be some biases that you aren't aware of that may have contributed toward either your dislike of Kemi or David or your treatment of them. What would you say to that?
There was nothing about the color of their skin that made me dislike them. There was a clip of me in the shower talking to Kat about David. So David came back from sequester and he remembered everyone's names, where they were from, and what they did. I know. Beth from Montana. That's where that conversation started. But in the kitchen, so what David doesn't know and what America doesn't know is my life story, the things that I've grown up with, the environment I've grown up in, my past, the past year and a half, how difficult it was for me, and the challenges that I have faced, and the reasons why I moved to Los Angeles, the reasons why I got out of Nashville, the reasons why I looked for the most uncomfortable city to be in, because I was not going to grow in Nashville as a human being. I was not going to grow in Nashville as an individual. I didn't pick Los Angeles to be famous or to be on TV. I picked it because it was the exact opposite of everything I knew in Nashville. And I was not in a healthy place in Nashville. I needed to get out. And there was a lot of toxic things in my environment in Nashville that were not healthy for me. And it was hands down the hardest year of my life. David comes back and he goes, "Oh, yeah, you're Jackson. You're that kid that like read some book and just picked his shit up and like did something different and moved to LA. You don't know me." And he said it in a very condescending way, in a very like digging way. And it pissed me off. The feeds also, on another note, only have 4 cameras going. There's a lot of cameras in the house. And on multiple occasions, David said retard in the house, or retarded, both forms. I had a cousin who had Down syndrome and autism, and she died at the age of 16 after battling leukemia 3 times. She beat it twice, and at the age of 16, the third bout with cancer took her life, and she passed away at the age of 16 years old with Down syndrome and autism. In combination of what he said about me, making a condescending remark and making assumptions about me and my life, that with using that word, which is a very, very, very big trigger for me and my family, is where the rage came from, where my comment about me wanting to mule kick that motherfucker's teeth in. That's where that rage came from. In no way, shape, or form is this explanation an excuse for what I said, because those words should have never come out of my mouth, and I apologize wholeheartedly for them. And if I could take them back, I would. But once it's out of your mouth, you can't do anything about it. And the internet is written in pen, not pencil. And there's nothing I can do to retract what I've said. And I take full ownership and responsibility for what I said. But the emotions and the distaste for David and Kimmy at that point in my life and in the game had absolutely nothing to do with the color of their skin. It had everything to do with things that were said and things that were taken on a personal level. And I would have gotten just as upset if a white, African-American, Latin American, Asian, it doesn't matter your race, your sexual orientation, your gender, your age, your body weight. It doesn't matter. I would have been just as upset. So to say that it was implicit bias or subconscious bias that went into my treatment or the things that I said about David and Kimmy is 100% false. Am I out of line for what I said? Absolutely. Do I take ownership for what I said? 1,000%. Am I sorry for what I said? I couldn't apologize more. But the reasons for why I said them, and this is what I want to make very clear, the reasons were never about the color of your skin.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've seen this as well, that there are some people that think that you said the N-word at one point.
Yep.
Did you say the N-word at one point?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Nope. That word does not exist in my vocabulary. And actually in my debriefing with CBS producers and RS production, they, after the finale, before I came out and spoke to y'all, I had my debriefing and they showed that clip. And they had professionals dissect every second of that audio. And it was very much proven that that word was never said. I would not say that word, nor would I say it on national television. I might say some dumb shit, but that is not coming out of my mouth ever.
Yeah.
And it just plain and simple. There's no other way to say that that was not said other than it wasn't said. To me, when I heard it back, it sounds as if there's audio, but it's not a clear, I don't know what it is. I'm not an audio specialist, but what I do know is that I never said that word.
Yeah, I actually, as an audio engineer, went back and listened to it like about 1,000 times, I think,
Okay.
to make, because people were like, "Oh my God, he said this thing," and I went on the update that morning and I said, to the best of my knowledge, I do not think this was said. The main clip that was going around was at a lower quality of audio. It was you and Jack talking at the same time, which combined did make it seem like something was said. But to the best of my knowledge, that was my conclusion. It's interesting to hear that the CBS had people look at it the same way I did.
Well, it's a very serious word, and it's a word that I will not include in my vocabulary, and it's a very serious thing. And I'm glad that CBS took the necessary steps, because if I were a producer and someone said this on my show, I would want to address it wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been offended if I heard that. So it's like, E News is saying, when this clip came out, talking about me being a racist. Well, it sounds more like Jack said it, but because Jackson didn't stand up and say something against it, he's also racist. I didn't stand up against it because it was never said.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple, we never said that. And if he would have said that, you better believe that I would have said something about that. Yeah. There's multiple times in the house where I would look at people, I'd be like, hey, hot take, easy. Like, multiple times. If he would have said that word, I would have 1,000% addressed it, without a doubt.
Yeah, that was sort of my conclusion as well. Like, at the very least, you would have been like, cameras. Because
I've been like, dude, you can't say that shit.
Yeah.
But I didn't respond, and we're on the cameras. There was no emotion from either of us because neither one of us said it, nor did either one of us hear it, because it wasn't said. It's just that simple. So it's like people call me racist by association because I didn't speak up. No, it was just never said by either of us. So why would I speak up about something that wasn't ever spoken?
All right.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Okay.
I think I made many of the same points at the time.
Well, thank you for a little bit of support.
Well, look,
I can't defend myself. I'm in a house for 100 days. I have no idea what's being said. So.
Yeah, and I was not without critique, even for just what you were saying at the time, which was you wanted to mess with David. But yeah, to the best of my knowledge, it was
here's something about that is that for me, I'm a very big competitor. I'm sure y'all saw this, but all growing up, all through, from when I started playing football at the age of 7 to baseball, boxing, whatever it might be, I'm very competitive. And on the field me is so much different than off the field me. When I step on the field, I'm going to knock the shit out of you. You are my biggest competitor. We are going head to head. And I don't care who's in my way. I came here to win. I have a job to do. And if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I came on this show to win. So yes, people on the live feed, you watched me for 100 days, but you didn't watch me in the comfort of my home, live my everyday life and see me interact with friends and family and see me in an off the field way. Off the field, I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I have flaws. Yes, I am. But on the field, I was competing for 100 days. So in my mind, David is my competition. If he's coming in here to get in people's heads and to mess with people, I'm going to beat him in his own game and I'm going to get inside his head. I'm going to build a target on his back. If people think David's peeing on the floor, then I'm going to go in there with water, splash it on the floor and make people get more annoyed with David. I came here to win. I don't care who you are. I came here to beat you. So if I can paint a picture of a target that is on your back bigger than my own, then I will do that because I want to win. It's plain and simple. And I don't believe in everyone gets a trophy. I don't believe in everyone gets a star. You have one winner and 15 losers. And if you don't win, you should have done something different or better. And it's very abrasive. And it's a mentality that is very, very polarizing, especially in today's day and age. It's not politically correct. But in my mind, if you're competing against someone, you're competing. Off the field, we can have a conversation. We can be friends. We can go get beers. We can go get dinner. We can hang out. You can sleep over at my place, whatever. But on the field, we are not friends. I don't care. I came here to win.
All right. So going back to the first week here, I'm curious about your timeline for when it was that Bella, in particular Bella, but Bella and Nick to some degree, sort of fell out with the group. Because they were ingrateful, but somewhere along the line, Bella was like ratting out Kemi, putting a target on Kemi, but then also being really close to Kemi, and it felt like that was one of the main causes. You guys were counting votes, and you couldn't count her vote for sure, and that kind of led to the 6.
I would say probably within the first week.
Mm-hmm.
Within the first week, because they started, sleeping together and being very close and affectionate. And then Bella was all over the place. She was close with Kimmy, but she's close with us. She's saying we need to go after Kimmy, but then she's with Kimmy. And it's like, what are we doing here? And then Kimmy's telling me that Bella's talking about us. So it's like, okay, Bella, we can't really trust. Nick is with Bella. Can we trust Nick? I don't know. Nick's great with his words. Is he playing us? Is he not? There was a lot of doubt, but it started with Bella's very aggressive gameplay. And very early on, I would say within the first 10 days at least.
Yes. You also were forming a relationship with Cliff very early on,
right.
Talking about like, hey, nobody would suspect that we're working together. And that is definitely a relationship that proved very valuable throughout the entire season.
Yep. That right there is what I was talking about when I was saying it's chess, not checkers. When people in my alliance are saying we don't need anyone else, and I was saying you're ignorant, naive to think it's always going to go your way. Fast forward to the double eviction. When Cliff and Nicole had power, who did they put up? The clear and obvious biggest threats, the showmans. They didn't know Christie and Tommy knew each other. Who did they put up? They put up the people that were late to the party. Holly and I started forming relationships with Cliff and Nicole that were genuine on a personal level very, very early on. But on a game level, I knew that at some point or another, I might need their help. And you're not going to get anything from someone if you're going to only be there when they need something, when you need something from them. Mm-hmm. And I genuinely love Cliff. I genuinely love Nicole. That relationship was very much strategic to build relationships outside of my lines, but it was very much personal. He's a great guy, and I adore Cliff. He's a hell of a man, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for him. But that relationship with Cliff was also because it's outside of my lines, but he's good at this game. He's smart. He's a petroleum engineer. And in my mind, I want to make sure that he's not coming after me. If he's coming after people in my alliance, great. But at the end, there's not 8 of us that are going to win $500,000. There's 1. So I need to make sure that if he's coming after my alliance, it's not me at the top of his list, which is exactly the case. It was always Jack.
Yes. There's a really funny moment, actually, when Christie kind of at the last minute decides that she's going to go ahead and put Ovi up instead of not using the veto, or instead of putting Kemi up. And so Ovi goes up on the block, and I believe how this played out is that you weren't fully in the loop about like what was going to happen. And so you went to Ovi to be like, to break the news, like, hey, I know you're staying, but I have to vote to keep Kat, but don't worry, you don't need my vote. And then you went out to the 6 shooters and you were like, yeah, I just told Ovi that, even though he's staying, I'm voting to keep Kat. And they were like, no, Ovi's going. And you're like, oh, well, perfect then.
Yeah. So it was, for me, it was like, I didn't want to see Ovi on the block. I loved Ovi. I connected with him. He's a former ball. He has a great personality. And I didn't see, we were actually we were in the same classes and never crossed paths, never knew each other. And the same major, like Tennessee is a very heavy business college. The business college has classes full of 300-400 kids. Mm-hmm. The arts and sciences department at the college we were in, specifically the political science department within the College of Arts and Sciences, our classes had anywhere from 10 to 25 people. And we had the same professors at the same time, and we never knew each other. Granted, I didn't go to classes often as I should have, but I loved Ovi, and I didn't want to see him go. But at the same time, if my alliance wants Ovi to go, then all right, sorry, dude, but then that's the way it's got to be. If they want Kat to go, okay, that's fine. Then that's the way it's got to be. In my mind, especially this early on in the game, I cannot go against the current. Yeah. It's too soon. If y'all want to take Ovi, all right, cool. Let's do it. Rip the Band-Aid off. Sorry. Let's go.
And it's around this time that the 6 shooters are finally like named and kind of official.
Which Holly came up with the name, not Jack. For the record, the episode makes it look like Jack came up with it. No, Holly 100% came up with that. So I want the credit to be out there. Public record, Holly came up with 6 shooters.
There you go. So it was so then you guys got alcohol either that night or the next night, and Kat was very touchy, very very kind of like all over you in a lot of ways, and you didn't seem very into it, and
it was in front of people.
Yeah,
it was in front of people, and for that reason, I'm sitting there. I'm like, girl, I was like, you're on the block. You're driving people crazy, and you're very publicly making it look like you and I are in a showman. It's like this is in my mind. I'm cringing. I'm like, this is the worst case scenario. Showmances are a death sentence in Big Brother. This is week 1, week 2. No one's even gone home yet besides David. He wasn't even evicted. We haven't even had our first eviction yet, and she's publicly displaying affection. And it was like, oh, Kat, please stop. Like, please don't do this. Not here, not now, please.
Yeah. And then she, the next day, started sort of questioning you about Holly and like what that relationship was like. And, this is like at least the 3rd or 4th like meltdown that we had sort of seen on the feeds, at least with you kind of dealing with that. And it seems like this is really the breaking point for you, where you're just like, you know what, you need to stop being paranoid. And you go to Tommy and you're like, can we send her home?
Yeah. And it really was. I was like, if she stays here in this game at this rate at which she's going, because the episode make it look like she was just happy-go-lucky, or you bitches conspiring against me. And the feeds didn't see the first week from day 1 when she got put up on the block, or day 8. Nominations happened on day 8, I think. Yes. Spiraling. And she knew she was going to go up on the block from like day 2. So she already knew she was going up. It was a constant battle to try and keep Kat subdued. And I was like, you know what, something's got to give here. So like, if y'all want to send Kat home, I mean, nothing personal. She's a great girl. I love her to death, but then it might help my game.
Yeah. And it seemed like Tommy was on board. But when you brought the idea to Jack, Jack was like, no. It's Kat will do what we say. Ovi will not.
Yep. So that's where I was like, all right, well, sick. Now I guess I got to deal with this for another week.
Yes, but then Ovi came to you and Jack and told you guys about his power, which sort of reinvigorated, like, hey, what about now? Can we keep him now?
Yeah, and I wanted to keep him. But then Jack and Christie shot it down, and I was like, here we go again. Mm-hmm. We're playing Jack and Christie's big brother. I was like, why would we not keep him around and have a power that we could use? And I was building a relationship with Cliff, and I knew Ovi was close with Cliff. So in my mind, selfishly, I'm sitting there thinking, Ovi could potentially use this power to help me. It might not help Christie or Tommy or Sis or Jack, but it could help me maybe. I wanted to keep them. But then when they shot it down, again, I can't go against the current. So I'm like, all right, whatever. And I was the only one that told Ovi right before eviction. I was like, it's not looking good.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because I really did. I love Ovi and I care about him. And I felt like he deserved to know.
Yes. So Ovi is evicted, but he's not leaving because Camp Comeback is in play. And so Ovi stays. David comes in, and Jack is going to win the HOH. You're doing damage control with David at this point.
Which is, I didn't expect him to believe it. I didn't think for a second he was buying it. And he did, which is fine. But I had to put in the effort.
Mm-hmm. And so Jack discusses his nominations with you, and he tells you, like, let's take a shot at Nick. Let's backdoor him. Like, let's do this. And you actually were like, Camp Comeback, though.
Yep.
Can't take that shot.
Nick is going to be living in this house. He's very close with Bella. They're loud personalities. They're not only on a social level are they going to wreak havoc, but on a competitive level, if Nick comes back into this house, we're screwed. So I was like, it's too soon. It's too soon with the potential risk of him coming back. He'll have a 25% chance of coming back in here. And if he does, we're up a creek without a paddle.
Do you think that that he would have taken the shot had Camp Comeback not been in play?
Yes, I do. Nick and Bella were sketching us out a lot. I think Jack would have taken the shot without a doubt.
Yeah. We talked a lot about that in the early days, that that Camp Comeback, while maybe appealing as a concept, definitely encouraged big majorities to stay together and for things to not rock the boat and get more exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you go against the current and you go against the numbers, and I mean, you're screwed. And especially knowing for a fact that people are coming back in this house is one thing, but having to live with them, and a week in the Big Brother house feels like eternity. There's so much downtime. Having to live with someone for a week after you just evicted them, they could blow up your game, and they have nothing to lose. They're already evicted. Why not? Why not stir shit up?
Yeah. So Nick is going to be telling you and Jack that Kemi said that she was going to be putting you up, which I don't know how much you've learned about that, but like was completely at his urging.
What happened? So say that again.
Nick was telling Kemi you should put up Jack and Jackson. And
I didn't know that.
That was the previous week, and then the next week when Jack won HOH, he was like, "Oh, Kemi wants to put you guys up." She said that.
See, I knew Nick was sketching us out. Sketching us out, plain and simple.
Yeah.
That bastard. All right. Damn it, Nick.
So, I mean, she probably would have done that anyway, but he was definitely putting that into her head.
He was playing both sides. Like we thought him and Bella were. We thought they were, and they were.
Mm-hmm. So tension is building here because there's a bit of a, I guess you could call it a love triangle going on. So Kat is kind of upset about the situation. Yeah. She's kind of mad at Bella, at Holly. She was mad at Bella the previous week. She's mad at Holly, and they're kind of fighting a bit here. And Kat's going to be saying some things in the diary room about Holly and about you, which eventually will lead to a blow up. I think it's this week that it happens.
So yes, on the feeds, it happens like week 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
In the episode, they clipped it, spliced it, and saved it for a few weeks. So here's what happened. Holly and Kat are talking, and Kat tells Holly, I'm dragging Jackson into the DR. Like, I'm just dragging him, blah, blah, blah. He's saying this, he's saying that. Well, Holly tells me that Kat is doing this. And she tells me this, and it's probably a week or 2 that goes by. I've known it for a while before Kat and I ever had this argument. And I wasn't going to say anything. And so I'm sitting there, I'm washing dishes, and Kat comes up to me. And I don't know if this was ever shown on the feeds, because apparently there was a lot of fish tank action during our argument. Yep. Because the basis of it was what she was saying in the diary.
Yep.
And we're not allowed to talk. So which is frustrating because, anyways, I have a lot of frustrations. Again, I was in the wrong for a lot of the way that I spoke to Kat in this situation. I was very aggressive, but I also want it to be understood that it was always factual. So Kat comes up to me while I'm washing dishes, and because I had told Jess, I guess a night or two before, I was like, Kat's probably in there. I was like, oh, well, she's probably just running her mouth. That's all she does, anyways. Because Kat runs her mouth in life and in the game. That's just Kat. She's a talker. She does not keep anything secret. She told me on night 2 that her and Holly knew each other. She is all over social media saying this. Like she just talks. She just talks, which is okay. That's Kat. I love her to death, but she talks and she doesn't think about the things that she says and the repercussions it could have on other people's lives. And so when she's sitting in there and she's in the diary room and I'm hearing that she's just dragging my name, well, she comes into the kitchen and she goes, so I have a bone to pick with you. And I turn the water off and I turn and I go, okay, shoot. She goes, so I heard you say that all I do is run my mouth. And again, this is a flaw of mine, but I truly do see everyone as equals. Male, female, whatever. If there was a guy that said this, I would be just as upset. Should I have been more compassionate and caring and sensitive to Kat in this situation? Absolutely. But our argument was this. She goes, I have a bone to pick. I said, shoot. She goes, I heard you say all I do is run my mouth. And I said, yes, I said that. She goes, well, why would you say that? I said, because I know you've been dragging me and smearing my name in the DR, and then fish tanks. But she goes, no, I haven't. I said, Kat, there's no reason to lie about it. But you're sitting here talking bad about me and running your mouth on national television in a position where I can't even defend myself. You're saying things about me and you're not saying them to my face, and you won't even say it in a room in which I could hear what's being said. Like if you feel a certain way, talk to me about it. Let me be able to have a conversation with you, but give me a fighting chance. Don't go and just completely smear my name to national television when I can't even hear what you're saying or stick up for myself. Like it's not fair. Like, don't do that. She goes, but I'm not talking bad about you. I go, I know for a fact that you are. Don't lie to me. And then she starts crying. And I go, why are you crying? There's no reason to cry. I know you're running your mouth. It's okay, but just stop. Like, quit talking bad about me. And I didn't feel bad for her because she's sitting here crying, saying, I'm not talking bad about you. I'm not talking bad about you. But she was. And Holly told me she was. So when I leave and I don't feel pity for her crying, it's because it's like, I don't feel bad for you because I know you're doing it. You know what I mean? And like, yes, I can't prove it and you're sitting here lying to me, but I don't have much sympathy for you when you're crying when I know good and well that you're doing everything you say and you're not doing. And the argument was about 10 minutes long and they only showed about 45 seconds of it on the episode. Great editing job. And again, I should have been more compassionate. I don't need to be as aggressive with my words, especially towards women. But it had nothing to do with her about being a woman. It had everything to do with the fact that she was talking about me in a position where I can't defend myself. Never said any of her frustrations that she said in the diary room to me in person. So I have no idea. She won't even give me a chance to have a conversation with me, a mature, rational conversation. But third, she's then getting emotionally upset and distraught, and it's on the grounds of a lie. She's lying to me. She's saying she's not talking bad about me, but I know she is. So that is where that frustration came from. It's like, I don't feel bad for you right now because you're doing everything you're saying you're not doing. And you're also not giving me, you want to have a conversation, let's have a conversation kind of thing. But it was very matter of fact. It wasn't me, slut shaming her or calling her out on her body or saying anything about her physical appearance. It was strictly matter of fact. Mm-hmm. And it was aggressive. It was out of line in some sense. And it was confrontational in a sense. It's not respectful towards her as a human or as a woman, but it was never about trying to put her down because she's a woman. I truly saw her as one of the other 15 equal competitors in this house. And she was saying things that upset me on a personal level, regardless of gender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was week 3 that one happened.
Yeah.
So prior to that, you had already had the sort of the breakup conversation,
right.
that had one of your catchphrases that I liked to poke fun of, which is, I've got to be selfish for the first time in my life.
Well, I do. And I'm not going to bring up my past relationships, but I came here to win. And I'm the kind of person that will do things for others, even if it's not best for myself. naturally and in life, and especially those that I care about. But I had to do what was best for me, and I had to realize that I'm here to win 15 or $500,000. I came here by myself. I'll leave here by myself. I'm not going to let anyone bring me down. I have to be selfish. Even if I like Kat on a personal level and I feel bad for her and I want to be there for her on an emotion level, I can't do it. I have to look out for myself.
Yeah, I think what was funny was that I think there were a couple first times that that happened during the season.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yep. Very true.
So you are playing in the Veto. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you planned on throwing this Veto
yes.
in week 2. But you ended up rolling your ankle here.
Yes. So I wanted to win Fiji, but I didn't want to win the Veto. But within, I think it was like a minute and a half, I stepped down from the sand into the water, and sort of like in locker rooms and showers, they have those rubber mats that have the circles cut out of them. Mm-hmm. That was there, but it was an unlevel surface. My foot completely rolled on the outside, and my entire body weight fell on it. And to this day, it still hurts. I still have not gone to a doctor about it. I've been busy, but it still hurts, and it still gives me issues. I still can't run with it. So my cardio is like, it's walking on an incline, but it does not, I can run, but it hurts when I do it. Mm-hmm. It still is not, it's no bueno. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was good for your game though.
Yeah, it was. And to be honest, I emphasize a lot, but man, I'm not gonna lie to you. It hurt. Mm-hmm. It hurt. It was black and blue and swollen for, weeks, if not months.
Yes.
Swelling was wrapping around the ankle. Like it was nasty.
Yeah. So Sam won the Veto. He's not going to use it, so it's going to come down to Kemi or Jess. And it seems like it's pretty locked in at this point that it's going to be Kemi. But you had an interesting sort of chain of events where you went to Kemi and told her that finally she's going to find out that Bella is the person that's been ratting her out this whole time. And so then Kemi goes to Bella to be like, what the hell? And then Bella goes to you and she's like, what the hell? And your response was to be, I was just testing Kemi, and she passed the test.
Yeah.
Well, that was BS, right? Like,
that was total bullshit. Yeah. And that was 100% blowing smoke. That was just covering my own track skills. Like, Kimmy, what are you doing? You're throwing me under the bus. I was trying to help you out. And then you're going to go right to Bella, the girl who's like doing you dirty. So I was like, insert foot in mouth. Let me get my way out of this one.
Yes. It was, though, when Kemi saw Bella go straight back to you after her conversation with Bella, that confirmed to her that you were actually telling the truth. And that was when she finally turns on Bella and kind of decides like, Nicole is my only person left here.
Yep.
And
so it worked out well. It was a little sloppy, mm-hmm. but everything worked out well. It wasn't the way I intended, but the same goal was accomplished. Kimmy turned on Bella. Bella turned on Kimmy. Kimmy started painting a bigger target on herself, but Bella also started painting a bigger target on herself within our alliance.
Right. And so Nicole and Kemi actually at this point decide that they want to start working on you and Holly because they are seeing that there's a little bit of tension between you and Holly and Nick and Bella. Nicole in particular has been, talking with Nick, who's been putting Holly's name in her mouth. She's going to go to Holly and let her know that Nick is saying her name. And they want to do their best.
This is where the infamous two-headed snake comment comes into play. And I was telling Nicole there's a two-headed snake, and I'm trying to get her to read between the lines, but then she runs and tells Nick and Bella. And I'm like, damn it.
So yes. And Kemi's going to use the information that Bella had told her, which is that she had a final 3 with you and Jack at one point. And it does seem like this definitely solidified for you that Cliff Notes have now been exposed and he's enemy number 1. But for you, it was like, I feel like Bella and Nick are still bigger threats than Cliff right now, especially given the fact that she's clearly been ratting us out as well.
Yeah. Bella and Nick to me were significantly more dangerous than Cliff, especially because of my relationship with Cliff. Cliff, they never showed it on the episode, but I overheard him myself. I called them Confessions with Cliff. And I would go like season 1, episode 1, season 1, episode 2, because we heard him on multiple occasions. And one morning I heard him and he said that he still wants to work with Mickey and Holly, but he wants to go after the other duos. So I knew that I had Cliff on my side. And I knew Nick and Bella were coming after me and Holly. So in my mind, Cliff was not a concern of mine. Was Cliff going after Jack and Sis? Yes. But for my game and for Holly and I's game, Nick and Bella were a bigger threat than Cliff was.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting, the different
dynamics,
the different strategies that you and Christie had. When Christie overheard Cliff, she just ran straight to the bunk room and was like, hey, guess what I just heard?
Yeah. And my strategy was very much sit on this information, use it to my advantage, because eventually I'm going to have to turn on the people within my alliance. We're going to have to turn on each other and take shots. So who can I trust and what can I do to start setting myself up for success outside of my alliance? Having no idea day 44 was going to happen, but trying to do my best. Again, looking long-term, playing the long game, not looking short-term and being naive, trying to set myself up in as many areas as possible and diversify my bonds in as many areas as possible to set myself and Holly up for the most successful game possible.
Yes. So Kemi is going to be evicted. There was an attempted vote flip, but it did get shut down. And Kemi is evicted. You planned a rogue vote. I was just talking to Holly about this, that you had proposed to her that you both do it and blame Nick and Bella, but that did not go through.
I wanted to. And Holly goes, it's too risky, blah, blah, blah. Don't do it. Don't do it. I was like, okay, fine. I won't do it. With every intention in the back of my mind, I was like, if you're not going to do it, I'll throw the one rogue vote myself, because there was a feeling I had that Nick and Bella were coming after us four, being Jack, Sis, Holly, and myself. But I felt like it was too soon, and with the risk of camp comeback, that they would not take a shot at Jack or myself. They would go after Sis or Holly. And my goal with the rogue vote truly was to protect the people within my alliance and to keep Sis and Holly off the block. I don't know if y'all caught that on the feeds, but my intention was to have two votes, paint them on Nick and Bella, or if one of them won HOH, paint them on two other individuals. Didn't care who they were, just anyone other than Sis or Holly, and to keep the people within my alliance safe. And it ended up just being one. So then it's now floating around this rogue vote. Whose back can I put it on? And it just guilty. Nicole's always said she has a guilty looking face. And it just happened to be Nicole. I didn't cast the rogue vote with, all right, now's my chance to just get after Nicole. It's just happened to be her. So then I just kind of pushed for it.
Yes. Pretty quickly, though, most of the people, at least in your alliance, are like, it was Jackson, right? Like,
yeah,
he's trying to blame Nicole.
Yeah, and you know what? At the end of the day, it was like, all right, screw it. I don't really care. But as long as someone, I really didn't care if the people in my alliance knew.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want the people outside of it to know, and I wanted them. My goal throughout the entire season was to have targets, as many targets as possible, do as many things as possible to create targets, so that I was not the biggest one. You know what I mean?
And the rogue vote later becomes a key piece of information during Cliff's HOH week and then Holly's. But we'll get to that. So you then approached Ovi about wanting to work with him, because you now know about you guys called it Zing. It was the Fellowship of the Zing.
Right.
And so you, I think, kind of wanted to get in with them as much as possible, right?
Right. And especially because Ovi had a power. But also, I love Cliff and Nicole and Ovi. They're great people. And I felt morally better about working with them than I did those within Grateful. But again, that's not where the numbers were. I knew Grateful would explode. I knew we would actually not explode, implode. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, I wanted to have people that had my back more than they had the back of those in my alliance. So it's like if we implode Cliff, Nicole, and Ovi, I don't want them coming after me. I want them going after other people. So let me try and start forming relationships with them now because I know it's going to happen. It's naive to think that us 8 are going to make it the entire way.
Yes.
And we didn't.
Meanwhile, Nick is now the HOH, and pretty much all of Grateful are like, oh, yeah, no, we're totally, we're a thing, right? We're an alliance. We're totally loyal.
Yep. And so we quickly had to reevaluate everything and be like, okay. So Nick is okay. Now we might be screwed. We might be going up on the block. Let's try and do some damage control.
And it works. Nick is convinced that he is in with people that he does want to take a shot at you and Jack, but not yet. Not with Camp Comeback in play. If he doesn't have to, and he is convinced that he can continue to win favor by doing what you guys want. However, Nicole, who is trying to make sure that this rift does not heal, talks to Holly about Nick, talks to Nick about Holly, and then before the nominations happen, she makes her play. She says that he and Bella would have been on the block if they had not won the HOH, and Nick says that he did come very close to putting up you and Jack, and that if it were for Camp Comeback, that he would have, but he decided against it. Ultimately, it was too much information with too little time to think it over. He didn't have a chance to talk to you guys about it, and so he decided against it. And this is going to very quickly come out that Nicole is the one that sort of instigated this, which leads to the big undeniable thing that happens in the HOH.
Which was, it's so funny to me that they put so much emphasis on undeniable, like it was actually a thing, because it was very much like
this is what I call, because like otherwise it's like what, day 22 was it? So
I'm just saying the episode, they make it look like undeniables a real alliance when it was like it was all a facade. You know what I mean?
And at that point, Sam had already been told by Bella about Grateful.
And Jack slipped up in the storage room and said, for a Grateful, I mean, the group of 9. And we're like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So it was,
So you did seem to get a bit heated in that room.
I did.
That you seemed to get pretty emotional. What was your experience of that?
So it was all an act. I was caught red-handed trying to plot and scheme against Nick and Bella. Everything. And in the episode, it shows me saying in the diary room, Nicole is saying a lot of things to Nick and Bella. And a lot of them are things that I've said, and a lot of them are true. And this is where that gif of me saying, like, I was going to keep my mouth shut, and I'm wearing that blue sweatshirt is like, Nicole is right. Nick and Bella are correct. However, the numbers of the house are in this room. And for my game, I cannot be caught going against people in my alliance this early on. So if they're mad, I'm going to act mad too, because if I don't, it's going to be very clear and apparent that I was saying things about Nick and Bella. So I'm acting just as frustrated, this and that. But in the back of my mind, all I'm trying to do is like, don't look guilty, don't look guilty, don't look guilty, don't look guilty. Because what Nicole told Nick and Bella was spot on accurate. I was coming after Nick and Bella. I did say there was a 2-headed snake in the house. I was referencing Nick and Bella. Everything Nicole said was true. But unfortunately, in the game of Big Brother, it's a numbers game. And you have to be with the numbers. And if at that moment they didn't believe me, I would have had 8, 7, or 6 people, give or take, who might have stuck by my side, Holly or Jack or whatever, coming after me because I was going against the people within my alliance. Mm-hmm. So it was like, sorry, it's either Nicole or me. And I truly did. I saw everyone in there as equals. And I love Nicole, but if someone's got to take the hit for something, I'd rather it's someone. I didn't care if it was Nicole or anyone else. I'd rather be anyone other than me. Mm-hmm. It's a game. It's a competition. I came here to win, and only one of us wins. So if Nicole is going to have to take a fall for this, and I have to play into this fucking mob mentality and get upset to make myself look less guilty, then I'm going to do that. It's a game. And unfortunately, people make decisions based on the way that you react to some things. And I did not want to get caught reacting in a guilty manner.
Yeah. Did you recognize like what the whole scene like looked like at the time?
Yeah, and it was not a good look, and that's why it's like, when I was shutting Nicole out of the room, and people claim bullying, and I can understand. I was bullied my entire childhood out of two different middle schools. I was always the overweight kid, and I got put through hell and back for years. Um, it's not as if we were up there, playing cards and having fun, eating cereal, to having like a cereal party. And Nicole comes up with an empty bowl and a spoon. It's like, hey, can I join? And we're like, no, get out. Like, shut the door. Like, we don't want you here. And they laugh about it. We were up there talking strategy and talking game about an individual who was not in our alliance. And we're in the middle of a conversation. And then when she comes up there, we're discussing things about her. So I told her, I was like, bad time, which it was. It was a bad time. I didn't want her walking into that room because there was a lot of tension. There was a lot of aggression. I wouldn't want myself going into a room with 9 people all coming after me, 9 versus 1. In no way, shape, or form do I say that I need to stick up for Nicole. She's a grown woman. She's a big girl. She can hang her own. She can hold her own with just about anybody. She doesn't need anyone to defend herself for her. But I was like, it's a bad time. 1, because we're talking strategy. 2, the things we're talking about have everything to do with you. 3, if she comes in this room, there's a very good chance that I might get caught having spoken about Nick and Bella, because she will be able to say that everything else was true, and she could call me on my shit. And I'm kind of getting away scot-free with Nick and Bella right now. The last thing I need is the witness that saw me do the crime coming in here and testifying against me. So it's like, I don't want Nicole in here because she's the one person that knows everything I said. And I'm almost in the clear with Nick and Bella. So I get 100% where the perception was from and where the basis of, it was locking her out, this and that. But it was never, from my mind at least, it was never about me thinking I'm better than someone or kicking someone out because they are different than me or in any way, shape, or form a lesser human than me. It was someone not in my alliance, just got me caught red-handed, conspiring against Nick and Bella, has a lot of truthful information about me doing such things that could very well ruin whatever damage control I've just done. And also the source and main component of this conversation, it was her. It was about her. So it's like, I didn't want her in there because it very well could have blown up my game.
So what was how did you see Nicole after this thing? Because obviously she had betrayed you in some sense. She had been bringing information back to
Right.
Nick and Bella.
Nick and Bella.
What was your perception of her from that
I
point?
was like, damn, I can't trust her, but I love her to death. I really do. I love Nicole. And then the way that she started getting treated by, Bella and some others in the house, that was very demoralizing to her. And she was very hurt by it. And this is where the whole vote flip started, was Holly and I wanted to keep Nicole. And I can't remember if it got clipped or not, but I said, I'm not so much as looking forward to seeing Nick and Bella and their facial reaction or their facial expressions when we blindside them. I'm looking forward to seeing Nicole's reaction. And, I had a conversation with Nicole. I wanted so badly to tell her, hey, you're safe this week. But I couldn't, because I couldn't. One, all season, Nicole was very emotional. She was crying every single week. They never showed it on the episode, but she would cry and she would be emotionally attached to the people that she would evict. And I knew that if she found out she was safe, her whole demeanor could potentially change. And she might go from being upset and, being, confided in her room because, she's going home, to potentially being cheerful. And if Nick and Bella saw that Nicole was happy, they would realize, okay, something's going on. So we couldn't ever tell Nicole that we were going to keep her safe, but I tried to hint to her. And there was one time I think I was like, any given Sunday, kind of like anything can happen. There's no guarantees. Don't count yourself out of this game, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So it's around this time that Jack is going to tell Tommy, yeah, I have a final 2 with Jackson, but don't worry, I'm most loyal to you, Tommy.
Didn't know that one.
Yeah. It was, and a lot of people thought it was Jack and Christie, but it was always Jack and Tommy, and so yeah, he at that point had revealed the final two with you and told Tommy that that he is his guy,
Right.
and you, I believe, throw this veto again.
Which is the Caitlin Erman?
Yes.
Yes, 100%. I Gronkowski spiked it. It was a puzzle, and I'm good at puzzles. And there was no way I was going to show myself as being a mental competitor this early on in the game, ever. I
Mhm.
wanted, and I had no reason to throw it. I mean, I had no reason to win it. I didn't feel like I was in the crosshairs. Nicole was pretty much dead in the water at that point. I was like, I have no reason to win it, and I don't need to win it because then what am I going to do? Am I going to use it and go against Nick and Bella? No. So it's like, why even bother?
So then Kat wins. You were kind of tasked to make sure that she was going to use the veto, but she was kind of already going to use the veto on Jess
Right.
to make sure that Nicole goes up. But Jack is also going to be like, I mean, Nicole wasn't lying though. Like I think we're gonna keep her. And so that seems to be when that plan kind of was solidified.
Right.
Which then, is going to blindside her into staying. And that's also, this is when you had the fight that you talked about with Kat about the DR. And then the rest of six shooters were actually kind of like maybe we shouldn't be dealing with Kat. Maybe we should drop her. This is when
Yep.
Holly is going to be like, no, we have mutual friends. You can trust her.
Yep.
And then that's when you find out about Christie's power. I loved your reaction to finding out about Christie's power, but like, wait, what? Why did she tell Nick and Bella?
Yeah, I was so confuzzled. Why would she tell Nick and Bella? She told them before the veto ceremony too, and they edited it in the episode to show it after. But apparently she told them to let them know, like, hey, if you put me up. She was so paranoid for no freaking reason.
She thought Nick was gonna backdoor her.
She thought Nick was going to backdoor, and we were trying to tell her no. And then she was so paranoid, she tells them, hey, I have this power, blah, blah, blah. I think as a way of saying, like, if you do try and backdoor me, it'll bite you in the ass kind of thing. Because, like, dude, to this day, I don't know why. And the whole house ended up finding out.
Yeah.
I was like, what's the point of having a power if you're going to tell everybody? It was anonymous. Keep it anonymous. Use it.
There was some debate about whether or not you guys should tell Kat that Nicole was staying. You and Holly were on the side of let's not tell her, which actually really pissed off Christie, who was like, screw them. If this backfires, I'm throwing them 100% under the bus. But you two eventually come around and you let Kat know and you have her vote the other way so that she can be in with the other people.
Yep. So Holly and I pretty much didn't want to tell Kat because, again, Kat is Kat. And she talks a lot. And we didn't want to risk it getting out that we were going to keep Nicole. But then we ended up telling her in order to maintain the relationship we had with her, but then also telling her to, it might be best if you vote the other way because that will maintain the image that you're still with the other side of the house too.
And it's also around this time that Holly tells Kat about Grateful. I don't believe she says the name, but that also kind of gets Holly into a little bit of hot water when it kind of becomes clear that Kat knows about an 8-person alliance and where did that come from. So Cliff is evicted.
A lot of interesting dynamics. Yeah.
Yes. Cliff is evicted.
For all of 30 minutes, he's evicted.
Yes. And Cliff is going to refer to this moment for most of the rest of the season to other people whenever he needs to make sure that people know that like he doesn't trust you. He refers back to this moment where like, oh yeah, after they voted me out, Jackson and Holly sit me down in a room and they're like, oh, this was all part of the plan. You got to come back. It's going to be good. He's like, come on.
Yeah. No, we had zero. We knew Cliff did not buy that at all. But what are you gonna do? We just backdoored him. Like we just evicted him, and it's like you got to try and scrap for anything you can get. You know what I mean? But yeah, it didn't work at all.
Yes. So camp comeback competition happens. It is like Cliff's superpower, and he is going to return to the game and then win the HOH, which prompts you to come up with a plan to volunteer for the block.
Yep. Absolutely. So I wanted to go up. I wanted to volunteer to go up on the block because I didn't want anyone else in my alliance to. And I knew what I was capable of on a competitive standpoint. I know I could win a veto. I knew that I would be fine in that area. I wasn't worried about that. And I also knew that Christie had her veto power. And I didn't want Cliff to take a shot at anyone in my alliance. If anyone in 6-shooters was going to be up on the block, I wanted it to be me. But I also know Bella and Nick are shady. So I was kind of like hoping with Cliff, hey, I'll go up on the block as a pawn, and you and I, we've tried to have a relationship back and forth. We both don't trust Bella. Let's use this as an opportunity to get Bella out, maintain the image that you and I are not working together. But in my mind, I'm also trying to keep the others in 6-shooters safe. Obviously, he ends up putting up Jack next to me, which, you know what, kudos to you. But at the same time, Christie made it very clear to me that she would use the power. Long before I ever even mentioned the idea to Cliff, I spoke to her and I made sure if I go up, that I have the opportunity to have the veto in my hands, that she will use the power so I can pick the replacement. She was all for it. Great. Because if he's going to go up, that means I won't get nominated. This is fantastic, blah, blah, blah. She made it seem, hey, Halls, keep up my clothes in the dryer. Thank you. So she made it seem as if it was just great. Everything's hunky-dory. You go up, win the veto. I'll use the power. Bella goes home. So Jack and I get put up. All right, Cliff, you want to play Big Brother? Let's play Big Brother. We got a veto to play. I ended up winning the veto. And all right, here we go, Christie. You ready? No, she's not ready. Now she starts hesitating. Now she's going back in her deal. I didn't know what she was doing on the other side of the house. I didn't know that she was playing both sides yet. This is where I started catching on. This is the moments where I started realizing Christie could not be trusted, because she made it so damn clear to me that she was going to use it. She was so reassuring every time we talk about it. Yeah, it's good. No problem. And this is where that frustration in the have not room came from, because it wasn't a matter of me trying to tell a woman what to do. It was a matter of me being led on and told that, hey, everything's good to go. We've got this elaborate plan, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're set. You win the veto. Well, I won the veto. Let's follow through with the plan that we talked about for days. To evict Bella, backdoor her via your power. And then she gets all, don't tell me what to do, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I'm sorry. I thought I'm very confused here, because I was under the impression that this was like a locked in deal. Like, why are you wavering? Or if you're worried about getting blood on your hands, then stop worrying about that, because you're not the one that will be putting them up. I'll be the one getting blood on my hands. Again, Big Brother's been the best blessing, because not many 24-year-olds get to watch themselves from a third point of view, a bird's eye view, for 100 days. And in a pressure cooker environment at that. So I truly get to see myself at my best and at my worst. And I have a lot of things I need to work on. The way that I speak and when I get worked up is very much one of those things. But it wasn't a matter of, and the way that I spoke with Christie was unnecessarily aggressive. But I was so frustrated and I was so confused, because I was like, you said for weeks how much you dislike Bella, how much you don't like her in the house, how badly you want her out of here. I volunteered to go up on the block as a pawn for the people within our alliance, and to keep us, you being one of them, safe. So what's the dilemma here? Why are you hesitant now? Because it doesn't make sense in my head. Like, am I in the Twilight Zone? Did I miss something in the past few days and weeks? I thought it was gone. Oh, Bella, 100%. Yeah. Well, watching it back, I'm very wise to the fact now that she was not always on our side, especially mine. So I get the hesitation. I get why she had it. But in that moment, for me, it was not a matter of like, I want everyone to do what I want to do, and I want y'all to do this, this, and this. It was just what the hell's going on? Why are you backing out of this now? We've talked about this for days. You said you wanted Bella out for weeks. Well, here's our opportunity. Let's use it. Why are we hesitating?
Yeah.
So
It seemed like a time in the game where I think a lot of your allies were kind of like, well, I guess this is the time to just spend Jackson. I was just talking to Holly, she was even talking to Kat about like, should we just let Jackson go?
Yeah.
And Christie was like, if Jack is the one that wins the veto, I'm not using the power. I'm not using it to save Jackson. No way. Which was kind of silly on Christie's part from my point of view, because the power wasn't that valuable, and only really worked in certain situations, and this was one of them. So to use it to keep the numbers would have been pretty good. But it doesn't matter because you win the veto. She still has some hesitancy. Ultimately,
You were saying Holly was telling Kat that we should just like let Michie out, like just cut him off.
Yes.
Yeah. See, I haven't seen that clip yet, so I didn't know that. That's new information to me. I
just talked to Holly about it. She told me that she was like, she did feel that way a little bit, but she was playing it up to Kat so that Kat wouldn't think that she was more loyal to you than Kat.
Yeah, see, I had no idea. Holly was just like, all right, yeah, well, just cut him loose. So.
Yeah. It was actually Kat that was like, no, we need him right now.
Yeah, Kat was the one saying that we need to keep him.
Yeah.
How about that?
That shift, it completely flip-flopped by the end of the week, where
that is new news to me.
You got into a fight with Holly, and that, like, I think Kat sort of saw that as an opportunity to turn Holly against you, but then you made up with Holly, and then Kat was still trying to turn Holly against you, and at that point Holly was like, no. And so by then it had flip-flopped again. But yeah, that was it was
that power. That's interesting though. But then going back to the power, it was so much like, I now saw the episode back, and Christie was all about Jack. She was not all about me. Mm-hmm. And I had suspicions, but then after this whole back and forth about the veto was when I really started to like get some red flags.
Yes.
And this is when I started like becoming very, very privy to Christie's shenanigans.
Mm-hmm. So Christie goes to Cliff, and she essentially says to him, if this was to save Jackson, I would not do it. And she goes on and on about how you were pressuring her to use it, and she doesn't like you, and so on and so forth. And she reveals that you were the rogue vote. And so Cliff, of course, is smelling a little bit of an opportunity here, and he decides to make a deal with Christie, and then proceeds to, over the next couple of weeks, navigate the cracks between you and her. But he makes this deal with Christie. She doesn't have to use the power. He will put up Bella, but he will need to be safe if he does that. What were your thoughts upon hearing this deal?
Christie told us that she made a deal that we would keep Cliff safe, and that in doing so for, I think it was like 3 weeks or something like that, that he would put up Bella for us. Mm-hmm. Which I was fine with, because Cliff is now doing our dirty work for us, and all 6 of us get to compete in the HOH, and it's no blood on our hands. It's Cliff's doing, and Christie doesn't have to use her power. In my mind at the time, I'm like, great, Christie still has the power, which means our alliance still has the power. No, I was wrong on that one. It means Christie and Jack and Tommy have a power, and Sis and Holly have a power, but not me. I didn't have any sort of access to that. But I thought the most interesting thing was watching the episode. Christie says that she will use the power to benefit him however is necessary. That little smidgen of information was not shared with us.
I don't think she would have, to be fair, but yeah.
No, she wouldn't have. She would have sworn on her sister's life that she would use it, and then she would go back on it.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So that happens. Cliff puts Bella on the block. He also is going to approach you and say, like, hey, I hope that, you're off the block. I put you up. You voted me out. Slate is clean.
Square, wash it, water under the bridge.
Mm-hmm. And you guys say again, like nobody will suspect it if we work together. And so that's a relationship that definitely will start to build here.
Yep.
But it still doesn't like fully culminate until later on.
Yep. And until after day 44, and then after I won Escape the Coop, and then the first HOH was when it really came full circle.
Yeah. So it's at this point, and this didn't really make the episodes too much, but Cliff actually talked with Kat, because really, Kat was the thing blocking Cliff from taking out Jack this week, because he still would have had he still would have been able to take Jack out, despite what Christie did with her power, if Kat voted with them, which arguably she should have. But he couldn't get Kat on board to evict Jack because Kat was with Holly, who was with the big group, who was, so on and so forth. But he did have a conversation with Kat about like, hey, are you sure you aren't going to vote this way? And Kat was like, no, but don't worry. Like, we can work this. Like, Christie and Jackson hate each other. And so they kind of planned out from there that they were going to continue to like poke at this rift and try to get you and Christie to go after each other in the next coming weeks, which they definitely worked on from that point forward.
Right. And they did a good job. They did. And honestly, it was the best thing to happen in my game. Day 44, hands down, was the best thing to happen. It was the worst and best thing to happen in my game.
So this is when you had the big fight with Holly, or one of the big fights with Holly, where she was feeling uncomfortable about the cameras, and she made a joke about your abs, and it was like the first real like big fight that you guys had on the feeds.
Right. Yes, it was just, again, there's a lot of things about my past and her past that we couldn't share with each other. There's a lot of things about my past relationships that I'm not going to share on this show. There's no reason. Relationships involve two people. And my past relationships, my ex-girlfriends did not sign up to be on CBS or on this podcast. So with all due respect, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but there are certain triggers and certain things about her and I that make us tick and that make us who we are. And a lot of the things that make us who we are our deepest scars, the things that have hurt us the most in our lives. And there are things that happen in life that bring those back to surface, that reopen them. Sometimes things that seem very, lighthearted and, insignificant to someone might not be as lighthearted and insignificant to someone else that has a lot of trauma from certain things and certain experiences and certain relationships. And for Holly and I throughout the season, we got to know each other very well, but we never got to share these things with each other because of our microphones. I don't want the whole country hearing these stories. I don't want the whole country to get to know me on that level. And I don't want them to look at anyone from my past life in any other way. That's not fair to anyone else that I was involved in a relationship with prior to Holly. Those are personal stories and personal things about me that I just don't feel like it was fair to share on national television. But it hurts all the same. You know what I mean? And there's certain things that get brought up that trigger her and I both. Certain ways that her and I respond to things that do not make sense to individuals because they don't know our whole story. And Holly and I, every single argument we've had could have been solved within 5 to 15 minutes if we had the opportunity to sit down and share with each other why something bothers us and the reasons why something upset us and things in our past that make us who we are and why something in our present could potentially bring that back up. So every argument we had was all based on triggers that we were not able to disclose to each other, if that makes sense. Because now out of the house, her and I are closer than we've ever been before. And it's because we've truly been able to sit here and discuss openly the reasons why we are the way we are. And anytime there's ever been any sort of moments of frustration, we can openly talk without our good old microphones attached to us anymore. And it's great because it takes one conversation, one small conversation, we move on. We learn from it. We get to know each other each day. But in that house, trying to balance a relationship is Hands down, the most difficult thing I've done. Definitely the hardest relationship I've had.
Yeah. So you'd say that like being unable to talk about like your past kind of prevents you from opening up and discussing like your feelings in the way that you would need to, because a lot of people I think had an issue with the way that I mean both of you to an extent, but you I think more so, like how you handled conflict and
Yep.
and the way that it was expressed.
I get very cold. I shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for me, it's like a light switch. Just shut it off. Even my DR with Jack after I got burned, they were, so what's your relationship with Jack? And I answered, my relationship with Jack, there isn't one. I just shut down. Um, I've been burned a lot. I've been cheated on in numerous relationships, and eventually, I try and give everyone that I've had a relationship with a fair shot, and try not to let my past relationships come into play and have doubts and lack trust with individuals simply because of someone from my past, because that's not fair to the person that I'm with in that moment. Um, but ultimately, it's like I've been burned so much. Even for example, my deal with Cliff and Nicole going into Final Four. The moment I get burned, it's done. It's a light switch. I go into off mode, and that is a defense mechanism that I've learned about myself watching the show that I need to work on. It is something that it's a wall that has been built up for years. Um, Early on as a childhood, not letting people get to me, not letting my emotions become vulnerable, because I've been burned a lot. I've been emotionally manipulated a lot. I've been hurt a lot. So for me, it's like I try and give myself to the person I'm with as much as possible. But then the moment I see any sort of signs of anything that has happened in my past, I just immediately, well, here we go again. Just another, right, done. And that's not fair. That's not right. I shouldn't be that way. And that's, again, going back to, I'm 24. I just turned 24 a week before moving into the house. To be able to see these things about myself from a third person's point of view is the biggest blessing. Because I knew that I would shut down, but I had no idea just how cold I would get.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. So now Christie is getting more and more upset with you throughout the week, and Kat and Cliff are now fanning those flames. You are going to make up with Holly, and then Bella is going to campaign to you guys. The blueberry pancakes thing happens. That does get you guys into a little bit of trouble, but mostly because they were already kind of against you.
Yeah.
And Nick is going to actually tell you at this point, he's going to be like, hey, Christie's coming for you. Like you got to watch out. But it didn't seem like you really believed him fully at that point.
So I started noticing things with Christie, and he told me this, and I knew she was coming for me, but I didn't necessarily think it was going to be that soon.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that sooner than later. And I started voicing this to Jack, and I started, in the backyard some mornings, and to Cliff, like, hey, some people might need to get a shot taken at them, without naming names. I was trying to make Jack aware of Christie, because Jack and Christie you said it too, they had a very odd relationship.
Yeah.
And I actually, ironically enough, I said it on Jess Graff and Cody's podcast, but I had a fake eviction speech planned for when I was on the block with Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about Jack and Christie being in a previous relationship.
Yep.
Because they truly were, like, their souls were very much in tune with each other.
They did act like exes. They really did.
They did.
Yeah.
And they're very similar on a spiritual level, like on an emotional, sentimental level. They're very similar. And I was trying to make Jack aware of Christie, because Jack was playing with his heart,
mm-hmm.
and he was not playing with his brain, and he was letting his heart guide his judgment. And I was trying to make him aware of this. But at the end of the day, I didn't think Christie would necessarily take a shot week 4. I thought it would be, week 7-ish.
Yeah. This is also the week that you were a have-not, which remains quite the controversy,
Right.
Because people feel like you cheated. They feel like that you did not take it, I guess, in stride. And they think that you ate food in the shower. I asked you this in the backyard.
Right.
Because people really feel like you did. They've
No,
got like a clip.
I never once, and I've seen all the clips. I never once ate anything other than slop while I was a have not. I was an asshole. I mean, I have a lot of moments of being an asshole, but that week I was an asshole. I was cranky. I was hangry. I was eating slop and only slop. There was never a point when I made food. I actually one time I made a shake with peanut butter and other things in it for sis because of the protein shakes I make were fantastic. I'll toot my own horn on that one. I think they taste good. But I was making one for sis and I got to stop that cart. And I explained, I was like, hey, this is not for me. This is for sis. And I volunteered to be a have not because I wanted to add it to my resume. I wanted the Big Brother experience. I wanted to experience that part of the show. I took cold showers. There were moments when I would like doze off in other beds or I would lay down with Holly like in the buck room. And in those moments, I agree. Like I shouldn't have even laid down in another bed. I didn't consider it sleeping, but like I get where that frustration comes from. But slop, I only ate slop that week. I would eat it in shake form, oatmeal form, slop nugget form. We were making like different sort of pancakes and like the whatever kind of like fried things with condiments. We were making it in all different forms, but I only ate slop that week.
So
and the list of improved ingredients.
Do you have an explanation for the clips? Like
so
why
like
they look the way they do?
I'll make shakes in real life. I'll drink beer in the shower, like a shower beer. There are clips of me drinking coffee while in the shower. I'll drink protein shakes in the shower. I would drink slop shakes while in the shower. I at no point was ever eating food, especially food other than slop, that entire week.
I feel like I remember people saying that you would like throw wrappers away after taking a shower.
Yeah. And so all I can say is that I volunteered to be a have not.
Mm-hmm.
And I, one, wouldn't have volunteered to be a have not if I wasn't going to stick to it. Two, took it very seriously. And I actually, in the watermelon clip on the couch, I said something right before proposing Ivy. I was like, I can't wait to eat a whole watermelon to the face. I was so ready to not be a have not. But I only ate slop that week in different forms, but I only ate slop that week and that was it. And the improved list of ingredients, protein powder. I don't like olives. I didn't eat olives, but condiments, things like that, spices, condiments that we were allowed to use.
Yes. All right. Well, heading into the next week, Holly is going to win the HOH. And I think it was it Raisin Bran Crunch that you got? You were really excited about a cereal. I couldn't remember.
Raisin Bran Crunch.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. They brought us Raisin Bran Crunch. It was like my favorite cereal of all time. I was so excited.
So Holly wins this one. Sis is pissed. She feels like you pushed Holly into winning this, and Holly wasn't going to win it otherwise. And now you were going to run her HOH. And so you and Holly were trying to make it, trying to separate yourselves a little bit. Holly invited Sis and Christie up into the HOH room to sleep with her and all of that. Right. So you talk to Cliff at this point. You have more conversations with him. You let him know that Christie said that she was coming for you. And Cliff is like, yeah, I've heard some things. Yeah.
Yep. So, Sis, this whole situation with Sis while they were hanging up on the ropes. Did they show this competition on the live feeds?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and they made it look like I was telling Holly what to do because I wanted power for that HOH.
Mm-hmm. They sort of showed it from like what Sis thought it was rather than
rather than what it actually was. And what it actually was there's two competitors up there. I hung up there for almost 2 hours, and it's now been almost an hour and a half after I fell off. So y'all have been hanging up there for like 3.5 hours. I don't remember the exact time. They never tell us the times. But if you're going to throw a competition, you don't do it after you've been hanging up there for 3.5 hours. If you're going to give someone an HOH, you might as well have just fallen off 10 minutes in. You both fought so hard. And yes, Sis was like, we're in the same alliance. What does it matter who wins? It matters because on a competitive standpoint, if you're going to fight that hard and that long, why are you just going to throw in the towel 3 hours in?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't matter who it was. It could have been Nick and Sam, two people that we wanted out. I would have said the same thing to either one of them. No, don't fall. Are you kidding? You've held on this long and now you're just going to give it to someone on a platter? Like, life doesn't work that way. If you want something in life, you earn it. You got to go take it yourself. You can't just expect someone to hand it to you and give it to you and give you a free pass. If one of you wants HOH, then fucking win it. Win it, fair and square. But if you're considering dropping it 3 hours in, you are out of your minds. This is a competition, and y'all fought too damn long to throw in the towel at 3 hours in. That was how it had nothing to do with Holly being up there. It had everything to do with watching two people who have fought that long. It did not make sense to me for either one of them to drop.
Yeah. Well, you are getting increasingly suspicious of Christie, it seems. You mentioned that.
By the day.
Yes, you mentioned this already, that you talked to Jack. So you did go to Jack. You said you're becoming concerned. One of the things that Nick told you was that Christie was saying that you were being disrespectful to women, and you were not a fan of that. That conversation, from my point of view, stemmed from her conversation with Kat, actually, because Kat was saying that that she did not want you on the jury, and that she felt like you disrespected her as a woman. And then Kat's later going to say that it came from Christie. So you're going to Jack, and I can tell you, I think it was actually having an effect on Jack. Jack, and I told him this too, at that point was really well positioned because he was right in the middle, where you were going to him about Christie, and but he still had the trust of Tommy and Sis, and if he wanted to, he probably could have just kind of ridden the middle for a little while, but then day 44 is going to happen.
Yeah.
So
he picked a side. It wasn't
hard. Yeah. Cliff and Kat are still heating up this increasing hostility between you and Christie. Nick is going to win the veto. He was the target from Holly, but he wins the veto. And so then it becomes a question of, who is Holly going to replace Nick with? Are you going to replace Nick with Nicole to take Nicole out, or replace him with Kat, who has volunteered, and take Sam out? And there was a lot of back and forth about this.
Yeah. So I want to go ahead and say, I don't know if y'all watch this on the feeds, but I made it very clear, and I said it in the diary room a lot. They never aired it. That this is Holly's HOH. She won the key. She's going to do whatever she wants to, and I will support it 100%. I'm staying out of it. It shows a clip of Christie and Tommy on the episode saying, oh, it's going to be Mickey's HOHs and that. And the editing really tried to paint the picture of me commandeering her HOH and pulling all the strings. When in reality, You really were aggressively not being aggressive about the two HOHs. I was the only one in the house not telling Holly what to do.
It was all you guys talked about all week long. Is I'm not telling you anything to do. I was just letting you know. I'm not telling you anything.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I don't want it to be perceived as me trying to run your HOH, because when Nick won HOH, Bella that night right after we walked in moved all of her shit up there, and I was like, I'm not looking like that. This is Holly's HOH. It's not Mickey's HOH, and it's not Mickey and Holly's HOH. It's Holly's HOH. Do whatever you want to, and I'll support you 100%. We were bouncing ideas off of each other. Christie was the one really pushing to get Nick and Sam up on the block and doing Sam. So then it was like a matter of, why are we evicting Sam? Are we doing Christie's dirty work for her? Maybe we should get Nicole out instead and keep Sam. You know what I mean? So it was like, it was very much, we would bounce ideas off each other, but I never told her what to do ever. But they only, at every one-on-one that Holly had, I would leave the room. I would go, I was downstairs. I stood out of every conversation. Holly and I are upstairs after everyone has done their one-on-ones. Sam comes up for a second time. And I literally get up and say, do you want me to leave? And Sam's like, no, you can stay. And this is what they show. This is the only one-on-one they show on the show, is the one that I'm present for. And it makes me look like I'm asking all the questions and that I'm telling Sam what Holly and I are going to do. And I'm getting information for Holly and I. It was so frustrating because I was literally the only one trying not to influence Holly's HOH. But Nicole was an option because it wasn't so much to get Nicole out. It was maybe we should keep Sam. Maybe we should keep Sam to go after Christie, you know? And ultimately, Holly ended up going with Kat. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I really feel like we're doing Christie's dirty work for her.
Yeah. I love how that culminated too, because, and we'll get to it in just a second, but after Sam makes his pitch to you and you want to keep him and you pitch to Holly that you should keep Sam and evict Kat, and she says she can't evict Kat, you're like, ah, man, I wish we'd put Nicole on the block. And she's like, why didn't you push harder?
I'm like, yeah, I literally was like,
that was the point.
I was like, I wasn't trying to push. That's the whole freaking point. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, damn it, we should have put Nicole up.
Yeah.
I knew it in my gut. I knew it. My gut was telling me, I was like, put Nicole up. Don't put Kat up. This is not right. Something's off here. Like, something's off with Christie. I can just tell something's not good with Christie. I was like, we'll see how it goes, but I don't think Kat and Sam are the best option on the block. And then, lo and behold, 44.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were talking to Jack about, you know, like, should we even form a new six with Nick and Sam and take out Nicole? Like what should we do? Jack kind of pushed back on that a little bit. You talked to Cliff about keeping Sam, and Cliff, of course, is like, oh yeah, we can do whatever. We'll stick together. Like, watch out for Christie. Yeah. And then
continuing to just plant seeds.
Right. And then Cliff went right to Christie and he was like, man, I keep catching Jack and Jackson whispering to each other. I wonder if they're plotting to keep Sam. And then Christie freaked out on Jack. And so that started happening. And then there's a big blow up with Tommy and Christie and Sis and Kat and running back and forth. And it was a very messy week. But ultimately it ends with Holly deciding to nominate Kat and go along with that plan, which then culminates with Sam campaigning to you and day 44 happening. So your idea was, once Sam campaigns to you, the veil has lifted. Christie is a big threat. Walk me through the plan from that point forward. You know, Sam talks to you. Now what? So
now we're stuck in a position, we're pigeonholed. It's either Kat or Sam. We need to keep Sam, but that ultimately in turn means evicting Kat. I don't want to evict Kat. We can't evict Kat, but damn it, I don't want Sam to go anywhere. So now we need to do some re-strategizing and work against Christie. Where's the first place I'm going to start? My number one in the house, which is Jack. And hopefully I can convince him, like, hey, Christie is coming after me. She was willing to go after you. She's not as loyal to us as we think. Here's why. I lay all these things out to him, and he rebuts back with this argument that didn't make sense to me. And I was like, look, he said that Kat and Cliff were trying to pin us all against each other. And he was saying it wasn't Christie that was coming after us. It's Kat and Cliff's doing, which I see a little bit, because Kat and Cliff were pinning us against each other. But I tell me if I'm wrong, I truly think it originated with Christie wanting to come after us, and Cliff and Kat were kind of compounding on it.
Yeah, similar to Nicole, it was all truth. They were just accelerating the process to make sure that they were safe.
I was trying to tell Jack, I was like, look, Kat and Cliff, because he told me that Kat and Cliff were trying to go against Holly and I. Mm-hmm. And I was like, look, I gave him all these different reasons, and one of the biggest reasons I gave him, it was the same thing I told him on day 2. When Kat told me, all I told him was like, hey, I think Kat and Holly, they know each other. Kat told me that she knows Holly from before here. I told Jack, I was like, dude, why would Kat go after Holly and I when I was the only person she's had in her corner on day 1. Holly's been the only person she's had on day 1 since day 1. And that Kat and Holly have known each other. Why would she go against us? Kat is not going against Holly and I. It doesn't make sense. Then he takes that as like new information, like he just discovered plutonium accidentally, and he just runs with it. Y'all fucking know each other. You all know each other.
I don't remember exactly how it was portrayed on the show, but you did come a lot closer to flipping Jack than you might think, because you told him the night before about Christie, and he was actually flipped at that point. His eyes had been opened. He was against Christie, and the only problem was Tommy. He was closer to Tommy than he was to you. So he went to Tommy and said, "Oh my God, Christie is evil. We need to turn on Christie." And Tommy, of course, had a connection to Christie. And so it was Tommy's idea to be like, "No, we need to keep the group together. We can't let people split us up." He was the one that said, it's Cliff, it's Kat. They're trying to break us apart. He flipped Jack back. And then so Jack went to you with Tommy's sort of...
And I was telling Jack, I was like, we can't trust Christie, but we might not be able to trust Tommy too. Mm-hmm. Because I was hearing that Tommy and Christie were on the side making an alliance with Nick, Bella, and Sam. And I was like, Tommy's been involved in some things that like we might not be able to trust him either. And Jack was so gung-ho with Tommy that it was like... there was no flipping Jack.
Yeah. And so yes, then he goes to Tommy and he's like, they know each other. And Tommy is like, oh my God, that's dangerous.
Yep. Which is very hypocritical. But I mean, on a game, it doesn't matter. It's a game. I don't care about the hypocrisy in a game.
Well, if anybody knows how dangerous it is, it's Tommy.
It's Tommy. Yep.
Yeah. So then Holly walked me through like her perspective of what happened when she figured out that the flip was happening. What was your perspective of it?
I was like, well, Holly's HOH for, we don't have the clocks in there, but it's like about 2 hours. After this, I either went HOH or I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Literally. And I was up in Jack and Nicole were feeding the fish, and I looked at Jack, I was like, what's going on? Like, what's going on? He goes, what do you mean? I was like, dude, come on now. He goes, dude, come on now. Nothing's going on. I'm like, Jack, you got the worst poker face I've ever seen. Something's going on. And I was down there talking to Tommy and Sis. I was like, so what's up? Kat still planning on keeping Kat? And they're like, yeah, as far as I know. I'm like, huh. Okay. All right. I went into the have not room. There's Nicole, Nick, Christie, Jack, Tom. I can't remember if Tommy was there. But I walked in there, busted the door open. So what's going on? Oh, we're talking about, how we're going to wear our hair for Sam because he likes us to wear poofs and stuff. I was like, oh. Okay. Yeah, I was going to put my hair in a poof too, but I left my extensions at home. Walk out. And I'm like, these motherfuckers, y'all, It's like, nope, this is happening. They're flipping.
Yeah. But ultimately the flip gets shut down, which is definitely big for you and Holly.
Right. It is. It gets reversed, and then we realize that I can't trust Jack. I can't trust. Christie's coming after me. Tommy, Sis, Jack. I'm on the outside of all of them. Holly's like right in between. She's associated with me, but she's not necessarily on the outs with me. She's doing damage control. Kat and Holly are pissed at me. I'm literally sitting there like, well, I have no bird. I have no bush. I have nothing.
Yeah. So it seemed like you kind of shut down from this point. Kat does stay, but even after Jess wins the HOH, you're kind of a zombie for the next like day or two.
Yeah, again, I shut down. I get very cold. I just got burned by my best friend for the second time in the game. I literally felt like I was getting cheated on. Again, I continue to put unwavering faith and trust into people that don't reciprocate it in life and in this house. And it was just like, it was right on cue with everything else that's happened in my life. And I'm there for people unwaveringly, and then I turn around and they're gone. So it's like, all right, I'm on my own again, and I didn't want to bring Holly down with me, but I knew that I was on thin ice.
It seems like for the Jess HOH week, you were really just, and Holly talked about this a little bit, like you guys were really just like really lying low, not doing
My
much.
goal
You in
was
particular.
to my goal was to, so I went into that week was like, I have to get off the radar. I'm in the crosshairs of everyone, but I have to be off the radar. I need to be silent. Yes, I might be a big target. Yes, I might have pissed a lot of people off, but there's still bigger targets in this house, and I need to let them stay the biggest target, because if I become target number one, I'm screwed. I might be target number two, but I cannot let myself be on the block next to anyone other than Jack.
Mm-hmm. You also do some more eavesdropping, lots of eavesdropping, lots of it from you this season.
I did a lot.
Yeah. Where did that stem from? Did you go into the house anticipating that you were going to be eavesdropping, or did it just kind of happen?
It's like, you know, the way I always saw it, I never wondered why eavesdropping wasn't a thing on Big Brother. But it's like, these walls are thin.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's having a conversation behind closed doors without me, but they are willing to say it to millions of Americans and all across the world on the internet, why can't I listen too? That's, if you're going to say it to millions, what's one extra person going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you're going to talk loud enough for hear me, then that's your own damn fault. Keep your mouth shut, talk quieter, don't get caught.
It's really, you're probably the person, at least, you know, since they changed the house, that has used eavesdropping, I think, the most.
Yeah, it was a big asset. I eavesdropped whenever I could, because that's when you find out the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hear about diary room sessions. I don't see the feeds. The only way to know what's actually going on is to hear it come out of their mouths when I'm not in the room.
Yeah. So you heard the 6-shooter, you know, minus you and Holly at this point, meeting where they were planning to pitch to Cliff a deal. You warned Cliff about it. Cliff, you know, was never going to accept it anyway. But you also have a conversation toward the end of the week. Jess wins the veto. Everything's set for Jack to go home.
Yeah.
Tommy makes a sort of Hail Mary play, I call it, where he goes to you and Holly, and he's like, look, I love you guys. I want to keep working with you guys. You know, let's get the 6-pack together. But not really.
Yeah.
You know, our friends might be targeting each other, but that doesn't mean that we have to be. And essentially, like, let's not be each other's collateral damage.
Right.
And this conversation is very important for the rest of the season, I think, because it really set in stone the, you know, prior to this, Holly and Kat had been talking about like Christie, Tommy targets. Now it's more like Christie, Sis, like it's not Tommy anymore.
Yeah.
This is, I think, this conversation and obviously the relationship and everything else, but this is really the turning point that helps Tommy to the final 5 while all of his friends get shot in front of him.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally picking them off limb by limb, where he's left just on his own.
Yeah. I told him about like there's a Buster Keaton silent film gif of him like driving a car, and I you know made that like that's Tommy's game. He was driving a car and then it like hits a bump and the entire car just like disintegrates around him and he's just left holding the steering wheel. He steps out of it. Like that was Tommy's game.
That was Tommy's game. Yep.
It ran into you and Holly.
Yeah, it literally, we did a good job of it. But my goal was to always have a bigger target in the house and to leave the biggest targets in there as long as possible, just up until the point that there was no one else, which is a high risk move, because if something goes wrong on those last 2 weeks that they're in the house, they might win power and take you out. But at the same time, if you take the biggest targets out too soon, then you expose yourself and you're number one. Yeah. So it's like people were telling me, Jess was like, do you really want to go into jury saying that you're 2 HOHs, you evicted Sis and Jess? And I was like, absolutely. Because what happens if Nick and Christie and Tommy aren't in the house and I'm up here next to Jess and Sis and Cliff and Nicole? I'm done. I'm screwed. I need them in the house. I need you gone. You know what I mean? That was my whole strategy, was to always keep a bigger target.
It worked.
It was risky, but it worked.
And this conversation with Tommy was also beneficial to you because Tommy's going to win the next HOH. And he really reinforces the conversation with you after he wins that you were not going to be collateral damage. He was not going to put you in danger. He had no intention of putting you. I know you were still concerned that you might still go up.
Right.
But from my perspective, he had no intention of putting you up this week,
right.
regardless of America's field trip.
Yeah. And that's what I've come to learn after like time has passed. So thanks, Tommy. Love you, dude. Appreciate it.
He correctly identifies that Cat is the link between what he didn't know was called Cliff's Angels and you and Holly.
Did I lose the video? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, you're good. And so he wants to get Kat out of the game. America's field trip happens. Christie goes on the block, but she comes back down. It ultimately doesn't really do much other than tell you that that America may not like Christie and Sis. You kind of already had a feeling that you might be in there.
Yeah, so there's a clip of me in the pool saying that I didn't come onto this game to become friends with 6-7 white people. Which is true. I have a very small circle of people in my life that are important to me. I have a very small circle of friends in life. I've been disliked my entire life by people that don't get to know me, that don't get to know the true, real me. They either see me in a competitive standpoint or they judge a book by its cover, and they never get to know there's a lot more to me than what might meet the eye. And I'm used to that, and I'm okay with that. I didn't come on here to make friends. When I go to work, I don't go to work to make friends. I go to work to make money. I have a job to do. After work, I'll be your best friend. But when I'm serving or bartending, it's a competition. You don't greet your guests fast enough, I will take them. I will take that table. If you don't get over there soon enough and you don't do your job well enough, then I will do it better. And I came here to make money, not friends. And ultimately, it was one of those things where it's like I had a feeling America would be very split, and I knew that people would dislike me. But it was like the America's field trip. I'm like, I wouldn't vote one of my favorite players into a position where there's a 66% chance something bad happens. Mm-hmm. 2 of the 3 outcomes suck. One of them is a nomination. And then the other is, safety. Great. Whoop-de-doo. But this is a punishment vote. This is not a luxury vote. So Sis was like, I refuse to believe America doesn't like me. Chris is like, does America hate me? I'm like, yeah, we're ALFB. What the hell are you talking about? America does not like us.
It's ironic because this is, I think, the turning point in how the audience does see you. Because from this point forward, I can tell you from the outside, a lot of people start coming around on you and they're like, yeah, is Jackson that bad? I mean,
right.
Look at him talking trash about Christie. Like, that's pretty funny, right?
Yeah. So again, the first half of this game, I wasn't allowing myself to be myself and play the game of Big Brother I wanted to play. I was playing in an alliance. I was riding with the numbers, and that was something I had to do in order to maintain safety. After day 44 happened, I was on my own. I had nothing to lose. I can finally be myself. I can finally act the way I want to. I can finally compete the way I want to. I no longer have to fuel the egos of Christie and Jack in my alliance because I have no alliance. I'm on my own. They're coming after me. I'm coming after them. It's set in stone. We all know it. So let's just play Big Brother. I can finally let my guard down and be myself on a personal level and compete however I want to and do whatever I want to. I no longer have to act like something I'm not and act like someone in my alliance because I have no alliance. I don't have to act like Jack. I don't have to act like Chrissy. I don't have to act like anyone other than myself. And I finally get to be myself.
Yes. Well, you and Holly were continuing to intentionally lay low this week.
Right.
However, while it worked for you the previous week, this week a lot is happening around you that you kind of only become aware of at the end of the week, which is that in particular, Nick is trying to create a new 6 that includes Nicole and Cliff.
And the new deal, FDR, literally.
Yes. Yes.
Cliff and his deals, man.
Well, to be fair, that was Nick's deal.
But I'm just saying Cliff was a part of so many deals. It was It was funny.
Well, after the deal with Christie, he had a reputation for being good to his word, and I feel like that really got in his head, and it was very beneficial for him for like most of the season. But I do feel like by the end of the season, he started to like rely on the deal making a bit too much.
A little bit too much, to say the least.
But after Nicole has proposed the deal, she tells Jess, and Jess blows it up. And this is when you find out that the deal has been made, and you overhear Sis saying, "Who have they got? They have got nobody."
Yeah,
and
they have no one. They're like, they don't. Okay, so they didn't show it on the episode, but on the live feeds, and sorry, my charger came out. On the live feeds, did she or did she not say they don't win HOHs, they don't win vetoes?
Oof. I mean, it would not surprise me. I don't have the exact
quote.
Because
I swear I heard that, and that is what would play in my head for the rest of the game, was that I heard her say, who do they have? They have no one. They don't have you. They don't have you. Do they have you? Talking to Jess? No. They don't have Nick. Well, actually, I don't know about Nick. I can't speak for Nick. They don't have Tommy. They don't have Chris. They don't have Jack. They don't have Cliff. They don't have so-and-so. They don't win HOHs. They don't win vetoes. It's them two against us. They have no one. And I remember hearing they don't win HOHs. They don't win vetoes. Okay, let's compete. Let's do it.
You don't happen to remember what day that was, do you?
58.
All right, I'll check
the
my
night
notes.
of 58. It was late night, in between the hours of like 11 p.m. and I'll go 4 a.m., maybe 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, in the Have Not room. I was in the hallway.
Oh, day 58 was the day you won HOH.
It was the
right?
night of 50.
So it was the
57
morning.
going into 58.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna look that up, but we'll continue to talk. I might not have it, but
okay, because I swear she said it. I swear she says she didn't, but I swear I thought I heard it. And if she didn't, then I'll give her credit and I'll shoot her a text like, "Hey, turns out you actually didn't say it." But if she did, then I want to know.
We can definitely look it up.
Okay. Yeah, thank goodness. That's the only perk I've come to find with the feeds still being online. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, there's so many notes for this day. This was such a ridiculous night. Yeah. Well, I'll look it up. I'll let you know after.
Okay. Cool.
Anyway, so that happens. Now you know the house is against you. It's do or die. We play a game on the podcast where we rate the players every week out of 10, and then that feeds into a formula that gives like a price, and so we have like a stock market for the players. And so this is a very big week where the best buy was either you or Christie, depending on like which side was going to come out on top, because we figured that you would target Christie and that Christie would target you. And we knew that the slip and slide was coming up. And we knew that you would be the favorite if it was a slip and slide, but you rolled your ankle. We weren't sure how that was going to impact your performance.
Body's an object, man. Treat it as such. I was like, I'll do it with no foot. I'll do it with no leader hosing. I don't care. I'm not gonna lose this thing.
Yes. So you pulled it out. And this was probably the most important competition that you won.
I left the comp and I stole discreetly the cup and the ping pong ball. And I was like, man, I've partied a lot in my day. This is hands down the most important beer pong ball I've ever had in my life. This might be a $500,000 ping pong ball.
Lots of them were important, but this was definitely...
This one was hands down. Like, I remember I was like, this might have just... Because if I didn't win, I would have gone out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, right? Because you did not win the... Did you win the veto? I forget now.
I did win the veto.
You did win the veto.
I did win the veto. But I'm just
so you
saying,
probably would have stayed, but...
If I was on the block
against
anyone that week, if I was on the block, I would have gone out.
Yeah. So you win the veto, you win the HOH. You want to target Christie. Holly wants to target Nick. You decide to go with Christie. You put Sis on the block next to her. It should be a straightforward week, but it doesn't really play out that way, as Holly, over the course of the week, is going to become increasingly convinced that she might actually want to keep Christie around. Tell me your experience with this.
So originally, Christie and Sis up there were to be. So Christie, when she was campaigning to me, tells me that she had a Final Four with Tommy, Sis, and Holly.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it becomes clear that I need two of them up on the block to break up that Final Four, because Holly would have been picked by them over me.
Yep.
And I also didn't want to have someone that Holly was close with still in the house. Kat is already gone. And I didn't want Holly to have Sis if it came down to me and have potential to pick anyone else. Which was, again, we were playing very different games. What was best for her was not best for me. What was best for me was not best for her. And I knew Tommy and Sis wanted to work with Holly, but they didn't want to work with me. So I put Christie and Sis up on the block with the intention of Christie going home, because Christie, at that point, she was strong in areas that I was weakest. Memory, mental comps. I'm very smart, but I have had a lot of concussions, and my memory is my weakest area.
You used to be sharp as floss.
Yeah. So what now?
That's what you said. You used to be as sharp as floss.
I said that?
I think so.
I've never heard that one.
Oh, did I get it wrong? It was a funny way of saying it. You used to be sharp as something.
I don't know. I need to find a quote for that.
You because you were talking to Christie. She was claiming that she had a photographic memory, which didn't play out. But you were talking about how you had a great memory before, but now you get a little scrambled.
Yeah. Here, do I have a second to go into a different room with better lighting? Because
Sure.
It's starting to get dark outside.
I found the quote. It wasn't a quote though. I just wrote it down. You said, before you got your concussions, your memory was sharp like floss. You could remember pages of text.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I guess I did say that. New information. Yeah, I used to be very, very, I had a great memory. I would be able to literally look at something once and remember it. And I would always see the pages in my head. And then it started fading. And now I can't even really remember song lyrics. I'm bad with names.
Well, it's funny that you didn't remember that you said it was sharp like floss, because that's...
Yeah. So again, case in point. I mean, look at BB Camp Expo with the memory comps of that. I shat the bed pretty good. So
yeah.
First one out. First question.
All right. So you also, Cliff is going to come to you after you win the HOH and be like, look, I had to do what I had to do to survive, but it was a 1 week deal. As far as I'm concerned, I am free and clear, and I can work with you. My one stipulation is Nicole's going to come with me. Yeah. And at this point, it's like, okay, I appreciate that, Cliff. I might need to use you as a pawn this week, but I didn't want to. I wanted Christie gone. I knew Cliff would work with me, not against me. I remember hearing him in that morning when I overheard him in the boat room. I knew where his intentions were. I heard it myself without him ever knowing that I heard it. I never told anyone in my alliance about it because I never wanted anyone to use that information. I wanted it for myself, and I knew that he meant it when he said he was willing to work with me. So I appreciate you volunteering to go up on the block, but I don't want you up there. I want Christie up there next to someone that will guarantee Christie goes home. Here's my thing. I didn't so much necessarily want Christie gone. I wanted her to no longer be a threat to my game. Mm-hmm. And that was where it came down to, before the veto, she was saying that she would do this, this, and this. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. After the veto was when she realized it was either her or Sis, and she was pushed into a corner far enough where she had no choice. And the moment it became clear that she was not going to be a threat to my game and we made that deal, granted, I realize now, looking back at the footage, swearing on her sister's life doesn't mean anything. Swearing on the Bible, and she literally stuck her arm out at one point, like, write it in blood. She was like, use me, just use me. I was like, okay, this girl's serious. Like, this deal is locked in. We're good to go. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, now she's no longer a threat to my game. Mm-hmm. So that's why it then came down to breaking up the Final Four. And then I started looking at the pros of evicting Sis. She's very close with Holly. She's very close with Tommy. She's very close with Nick. She's very close with Christie.
she's not close with me. I asked Sis, what would happen if you won the HOH next week? Who are you putting up? She couldn't even give me a straight answer. So it's like Christie's sitting here swearing on everything under the sun and she's not coming after me. But Sis can't even tell me that I'm safe. And she's telling Holly she wants to work with her. She's telling Tommy she wants to work with Holly, but she's not including me. So why would I keep somebody who's not going to work with me when Christie's sitting here vocalizing that she's not going to come after me? It just didn't make sense. So that's when I was like, all right, Sis, you got to go.
Yeah, you had a couple of arguments with Sis that were not super productive on her end, really. No, and the last one was on eviction day. She's putting makeup on. It ended with, I fucking hate you. You're a fucking liar. You're dead to me. It's like, all right, great. Jury management starting off on a great note. First HOH, and I'm fucking dead to her, quote unquote. Gee. Can't wait. It's actually usually a good thing when a jury member goes out saying those things, because I feel like they usually end up voting for that person, but it creates a perception in the house that they won't. Right. And so I was trying to, like, at the back of my mind, I'm like, I think with time, it will make things heal, especially with Jack in there as well. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we could work through it. So she met Joy that night. It did work out. Certainly, you know, Taco Tuesday happened as well, which I think certainly in the edit was like the main factor that caused the vote flip. I think realistically it was a cause in that it did help sort of sell that she was very anti-Nick and that was a rift that probably wouldn't be healed quickly. Because it is the flip does happen soon after Taco Tuesday. Right. So how much would you say that whole situation played into your ultimate decision? With Taco Tuesday? Yeah. None for me, honestly. My biggest thing, again, this goes back to my strategy of painting targets on other people's back. I know Nick wasn't coming after me, but I was very much encouraging Christie to go after Nick and Nick to go after Christie, because it will create targets on both of their backs. You know what I mean? And it will hopefully get me out of the crosshairs. I'm coming after 2 weeks of literally being public enemy number one. I would love Nick is not necessarily coming after me just yet, I don't think. I like him on a personal level. I know he'd probably go after Holly before me. Maybe, I don't know. I could be wrong. But the way I saw it was if Christie and Nick go toe-to-toe, then it is going to create a target on one, if not both of their backs, and hopefully take me out of the spotlight. So I was sitting there gassing them up both. I was like, you should definitely go after Nick. Dude, Nick, Christie's been dragging you. You should definitely confront her. Like, be on top of it. Get after it. And then they both ended up just kind of... Manifest the truth, bro. Yeah, manifest the truth, bro. That's one of my favorites. I did a recreation of Taco Tuesday, and all of the faces of everybody as they watched, and somebody made an image of all of my reenactment faces, and yours is like sitting there with a cup of coffee, like hiding your smile with it. I loved it. It was great. It's exactly what I wanted at. It was perfect. So really, you know, you decide Sis is going to go. You continue to develop your relationship with Cliff and Nicole. You continue to talk with Tommy and Nick. There's a lot of talk of like guys need to stick together, which was really mostly just a lot of smoke being blown. Ultimately, but it was because Jessica was so vocal about eliminating males for only being males. Which is kind of like a weird double standard to me, because if I would have said we need to evict someone on the grounds of their gender because she's a female, I would be annihilated online. I would truly be annihilated online. And like I've never thought this person needs to go because of their gender. Yeah, and so it was like, you know, Jessica was sitting there so vocal against us for being males simply because we were males. So it was like, well, shit,
We got to kind of stick together. The less males there are, the less targets there are in Jess's eyes. If I'm one of two guys, then we're both probably going to be sitting on the block. So we need to stick together.
Yes. So it did seem like Nick was more anti Holly than he was anti you. And that I do think was one of the reasons. I think he felt he had a good relationship with you as well. So Sis is evicted. Right before the eviction, Christie and Nick do have a conversation, like preliminary peace talks is what I called it. That if Holly had not won this next HOH, I fully would have expected that they would have mended fences, especially with Tommy as the mediator. And that definitely would have been bad news for you and Holly. But Holly does win the HOH. And
he slammed it. I love it.
Yes, it's time to take out her white whale.
Nick. Down he goes.
But little complication first. It's America's Prankster Week, and she initially plans on using Christie as a pawn. Cash in that chip already. She lets Christie know that she wants to use her as a pawn before she has to, and then realizes
she immediately regretted after she said that. She's like, damn it, I shouldn't have said it. It's like, it's okay. You know what? It's all right. Whatever.
Yep. So America's Pranksters revealed. Holly decides she wants to put up Nick anyway. And I just talked to Holly about this. Like, I really feel like this is where Nick really screwed up in the sense that he becomes America's Prankster. And I think this was on the strength of having just watched Taco Tuesday. A lot of people are like, Christie is the villain. Who's going to go after Christie? Nick. And so they gave it to Nick. And really what he could have done in my eyes is gone to Holly and to you, really. And been like,
his leverage.
Yeah, hey, I'm America's Prankster.
He did it way too late.
Let's work something out.
After the veto.
Yeah, and he tried to make it seem like that was better. Which I guess theoretically it is, but at that point he's lost his leverage.
Exactly. And so it's like the veto's already been won, dude. And now granted, I wouldn't have thrown it because at this point in the game, every competition I'm trying to win. I'm trying to win every competition because if I don't, especially with Prankster, I don't know who it was. If Christie's not on the block, I very well could see the block next. So I told Nick right before we went outside, I was like, Nick, I'm gunning for this veto as if I'm on the block. I'm letting you know right now I'm playing for it as hard as I can. So I'm sorry. I know you're my boy and you're on the block, but I'm gunning for this veto. And if there was ever a time to tell me that he was Prankster, it was right then. And he didn't.
I feel like if he had gone to you and Holly and been like, look, I'm America's Prankster, but I want to work with you guys. I don't want to put Jackson up. I don't want to do anything crazy like that. I'm after Christie, you're after Christie. How about you put Christie up, I put Jess up, or something along those lines, and we, neither side gets taken out here. Do you feel like that would have worked?
I do, and I think that Holly was HOH. She had a much stronger reason to go after Nick than I did. If I was HOH, I would have probably been more inclined to accept it. But Holly being HOH, I don't know if there's anything Nick could have done to get him out of the crosshairs for her. He was a threat to her game. He was coming after her before me. And she was going to do what was best for her. I at no point tried to talk her out of evicting Nick. She wants to get Nick. Best for your game. It's not best for mine. So be it. Let's go with it. This is your HOH. You won it. You won the key. If I wanted to keep Nick safe, then I should have won HOH myself, but I couldn't, and she did, and I'm going to support her on it. I don't know if that decision would have worked with Holly being HOH. If it was going to work with one of us, it had a best chance of working with me, but I wasn't HOH, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it basically would have been risking, you on the block if she doesn't comply. So
right, but then also, he might go back on his word.
Yeah,
he might put me up anyways, and then it's like, what do we do? So honestly, not knowing was so much less stressful because if we had known, it would have added a whole nother element to the game.
So then you are going to end up winning the veto, which means that you can keep the nominations the same. he is going to try to make a pitch to you guys, the condom pitch.
Which was really funny. And I wish they would have aired it all.
I was so annoyed they didn't air it.
I know. Oh,
I am going to be your condom. Oh crap! I just broke this one. No, I got another one.
I'm your protection. I'm here to work for you and protect you.
Yeah. It didn't land though. I do think, and Holly talked about this a little bit, but like I do think that he was a lot more genuine about it than Christie was at this point.
Oh yeah.
But he was also more threatening. He was really the only person left in the game that could give you a run for your money in anything physical. Yeah. You know, apart from maybe Holly, but that doesn't matter. Right. And so, you know, I was back and forth about like, I do think Nick won't gun for them next week, whereas Christie will, but I do feel like if you take Nick out, then Jackson's going to win like most of the physical competitions from this point forward. Right. So I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it was a very double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. Very.
Yes. So ultimately, you do decide to take Nick out here. It's what Holly wanted as well. The condom pitch happens, but Nick goes home. Christie and Tommy, though, are at this point pretty much fully against you in particular, you and Holly if necessary. But Tommy, for a while, has wanted to take you out so that he can, you know, pull Holly in. Right. And if he needs to, he'll take out Holly to disarm you. But ideally, he'd take you out. Right. And so you go up on the wall. And you end up winning this one against Tommy. You said afterward that this was to protect Cliff and Nicole. Was that the truth?
Yes. I was under the impression that Tommy was not going to come after me or Holly this week and that he would have gone after Cliff and Nicole. And I was very much invested in that final four of Cliff and Nicole. Those are the only two other people besides Holly that I was going to be loyal to. I didn't want Tommy to win and take a shot at Cliff and Nicole. I truly didn't think he was going to take a shot at me or Holly. I could be wrong. From what you're saying, it sounds like I might be wrong.
I did one of these with Tommy, and I talked about how you said that you won it for Cliff and Nicole, and he was like, "What? No, he knew. We had like he understood I was going for him. Like he was in shock that you would even think that."
No, I thought he was going after Cliff and Nicole. Because I was asking Holly, I was like, should I throw it or not? So then I was like, Tommy, you're good. Like, as I didn't want to go after Tommy yet. So I was like, Tommy doesn't want to go after me. I don't want to go after him. And there's no point in him winning it and going after Cliff and Nicole. I need to win it to make sure he doesn't go after Cliff and Nicole. Mm-hmm. Turns out it was the right decision because he would have gone after me.
Real good thing you won it. Yeah.
Damn, Tommy, I don't boy. He had to play for that.
And he knew things were bad too, because he was then like talking to Holly like, hey, I want to be involved more, because he knew he wasn't being involved, which of course Holly was like, I don't want to have to lie to him though. But yes, it was definitely, that was another close call with the HOH.
Yeah, that was one of those where it was like, all right, I need to win this because I don't want someone in our final four going out.
Mm-hmm. So this is when you decide you want to take Jess out. And your reasoning to Holly was that, Jess, she could be a mental threat, and Tommy and Christie still are saying that they're not coming for us. So if we have Tommy and Christie on one side, we have Nicole and Cliff on the other side, then we're well positioned in the middle, which was not the case at the time.
No. No, it wasn't.
But I still think you made the right move. And it comes down to what you were talking about before about keeping the bigger targets in the game.
Because I knew if Cliff or Nicole won, yes, we had a final four. But if Christie or Tommy were gone and Cliff and Nicole had to choose between me, Jess, or one of the halves of Christie and Tommy, I more than likely would have gone on the block. I would have seen the block.
Yeah.
So for me, it again was risky. It was very high risk because Jess was not coming after me, I don't think, that week. Mm-hmm. But she would have picked Christie over me.
Yeah.
She would have picked Christie over me. And she would have, out of the 3 guys left, come after me first.
Yeah.
Or Cliff. Either way, someone in our Final Four. So for me, I was like, you know what? Jessica needs to go. And she also is very, very smart. She's a photographer. I knew, and she does modeling. She sees those details in pictures. The BB Camp Expo told me everything I needed to know about like her mental strengths, because that's where I lack most, especially attention to detail. My guy brain is very much alive. BB Comics, I did not see those things the way that she sees them. The Camp Expo, I didn't see those things. She says that I was just gassing her up and blowing smoke. She really is very visually intelligent. And she is, to me, very threatening in those competitions, because I knew Faces was coming up, which it never happened, unfortunately. But also knew BB Comics was coming up. And those two are very visual based, my 2 weakest areas. So it was like, all right, if Jess and Christie are both in this house, I'm screwed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I can tell you that if you had taken out Christie or Tommy, I think you are basically 100% evicted at the double eviction.
At the double eviction, yeah.
I asked Nicole and Cliff both, and they were like, yeah, if Jess had been there, yeah, we definitely would have taken out Jackson.
100%. Why not? It makes no sense not to. Again, you got to keep bigger targets in the house as long as you can until absolutely necessary.
Mm-hmm. So definitely works out. You did have to have that awkward conversation with Jess.
Well, see, that's the thing. Did it show on the feeds? Because it wasn't that awkward. There was a lot of talking involved.
It wasn't as a lot of conversations with Jess in general.
Yeah.
Tend to last a while.
Yes.
So really any conversation could be classified, I think, as awkward. But they definitely, that one in particular, they like edited the same like pause like 4 times in a row or something.
Yeah, they exaggerated it very hard.
Yeah. We also didn't talk about the Jess falling from the wall, which was one of my favorite moments of the season.
I lost it. That and the Russell Sprouts. Those are the 2 funniest edits I've seen in a long time.
Yeah. And then of course, like Nicole being freaked out by the clowns was very fun.
Yeah.
That was a great night of feeds. And like you hiding behind the couch.
Yep, hiding behind the couch, throwing stuff, trying to mess with her. It was a fun week. That and the pies were a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. The Great Pie Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when Nicole and I became very close. And they really never showed on the episode Nicole and I's relationship.
Yeah. They didn't. Yeah, it really developed, especially with the pies and you know the clowns and all of that.
But they never showed us as close as we actually were.
Mm-hmm. So. Your HOH, you put up Jess and Christie, but Tommy wins the veto. Tommy's going to save Christie, and that means you have to put Cliff on the block. Tommy and Christie are going to try to flip Nicole against Cliff, but it does not work. This is around the time that we saw Tommy talking to the cameras saying that he felt that that Holly was just being dragged along by you, which is when I was like, oh, so Jackson definitely wins in a final 2 against Holly. And we also got a lot of positioning. This was like the end of the good, the bad, and the ugly, where the 3 pairs are standing off against each other, and each of you is trying to be the one that has the other 2 pointing the guns at each other.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is going to end up being Cliff and Nicole. And
this all comes back to those relationships that Holly and I developed when Christie and Tommy were saying that they were going to bulldoze through the house and that we don't need anybody else. When Holly and I were looking at each other like, that ain't how this game works. And we were building relationships with Cliff and Nicole. This is when it paid off. You know what I mean? And because Christie and Tommy were trying really hard to become friendly with Cliff and Nicole.
They were.
And we were watching them on the HOH TV, staying up late at night, laughing, giggling, making dolls with each other. And like, they were hustling for it. But luckily it ended up working out in Holly and I's favor.
Yeah. And they had been trying for a little while too. but Cliff and Nicole had a lot of conversations before the double eviction, going back and forth. Nicole was actually a little bit less sure about siding with you guys, but they felt like with mental competitions coming up, that Tommy and Christie were just a little more threatening in mental competitions. They wouldn't have to break their word if they stuck to you and Holly, and so it just made sense to stick with you guys. I felt like that was the right call for them also at the time, because I was also anticipating mental competitions.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, is that Holly and I really tried to downplay our mental abilities. Really tried to downplay them, especially, again, people judge people off of their appearance, and they're going to associate Holly and I as being just dumb and ignorant and clueless. You know what I mean? But her and I are a lot more intelligent than we write off to be. You know what I mean? And so I'm glad that we were able to come across as not being good at mental competitions or strategic competitions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they still like respected your ability there, but they felt that like Tommy and Christie in particular both knew, like they were very obvious about how well they knew their days up and down and all of that. And ultimately that doesn't ever really come into play. Anyway.
Yeah.
So they make the call after Nicole wins. They're going to side with you guys. They evict Christie, and now you are in the final 5. And another important HOH competition, where, and this is like really the final mental competition of the season. Mm-hmm. And you said that you're not great visually, so it's really good that you managed to win this one.
Did they show this competition on the feeds?
They did not. So yeah, the way it was edited was really weird.
Yeah, it's really frustrating because I was answering these things within like 10 seconds.
I figured.
We were not sitting there like lackadaisical, like, let me see, I'll go with B. It was like we were all answered within 10, 20 seconds. Mm-hmm. And I was also going to say, it was not the first person to 5 questions wins. There was only 9 questions. But they rephrased the intro because I ended up getting 5 questions, and we only did 8 questions.
Okay.
Because I had 5, Cliff had 2, and Tommy had 1. There was no way for anyone else to win. So we stopped at 8 questions. The original phrasing for the HOH comp was the person with the most points after 9 questions wins. Because they didn't expect someone to get 5 out of 9 correct. Because there was 4 of us competing.
Yeah.
And then they ended up rephrasing it into saying the first person to 5 wins, which I was kind of frustrated about because it's like it takes a little bit of like me being like tooting my own horn here. It's not like it was the first person to 5. No, I did something that they weren't preparing for. It was 5 out of 9.
Yeah.
There were only 9 questions.
That's actually really interesting because when I was thinking about whether it was the right call for Nicole and Cliff to side with you or Tommy, one of the lines of reasoning I went down was that counting how Tommy would have done in that competition with you not there, I felt like Tommy was set to win because he would have had 4 points and would have had a pretty good lead. But given that it's out of 9, I think that means he definitely wins that HOH, which means
it was only out of 9 questions.
Right, which means that he.
But I will say this: Cliff was very quick on his buttons. Mm-hmm. They don't. So the editing does not show the accuracy in which people answered.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because it makes it seem very black. Dude, they were playing these audios, and I was literally sitting there. I would narrow it between 2. I would eliminate 1 and sit there between 2 and just bam, go for it. Let's see what happens. If I'm right, I'm right. If I'm wrong, then oh well. But we were not sitting there listening. Yeah. We were all answered before the audio even finished. Anyway.
Yeah. I think what they were doing was like, playing the long clip of like, oh, so I was thinking about this and like blah blah blah, and then I buzzed in, and then they would show like the dun dun dun, and
it was like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like no, it was the audio starts playing within 10 seconds. Bam, 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 bam. It was quick, and we're all sitting there freaking out about it. But it's kind of frustrating because it's like at least give me some credit. I got 5 out of 9 correct. Like, you're making it sound like it was expected that someone was going to get 5 questions right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the first 1 to 5. No, it was whoever has the most points out of 9 wins.
And this,
so I don't know. That's just me selfish. I won, and I'm not being cocky or anything, but it was like the editing was kind of fresh because that was a very difficult competition.
Mm-hmm.
And I was proud of my performance in that competition, but it wasn't shown to be as difficult as it actually was, and it wasn't shown to as being as impressive as it was, if that makes sense.
And again, hugely important HOH for you, given that it's basically like this is the opportunity. Like, this is when you should have gone home. This was when there was not an overly physical competition that you could just dominate the others in. And Nicole is going to end up winning BB Comics. We know now that if you had been vulnerable, you're basically definitely a goner. So the fact that you managed to win this, like, really the final true mental competition of the season, was definitely like the saving grace here.
Yeah, I walked out of there. I mean, I came in hot giving Swaggy a hug. I jumped to the booth and like sprinted at him, and Bailey was like, "Oh my God, like, don't hug me that hard." I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm pumped up because I know now we're going into the Final Four."
Mm-hmm.
Or so I thought we were going into the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
Never crossed my mind that Cliff and Nicole would ever even think about doing this dirty until after Nicole won the BB Comics, and I was in the kitchen and I was like, "Something's dawned on me," and I was like, "Hey, Halls, let's go upstairs for a second." And we went into the HOH bathroom. I was like,
Yep.
On paper. Sorry, I'm jumping the gun here. I'll let you dive.
Well, no. I mean, that's basically how it goes. Obviously, Tommy tells you about his connection to Christie before.
Which was I don't know about your opinion. I think the biggest mistake he made all game.
It definitely wasn't the smartest move, for sure.
Well, I don't know about the biggest mistake because I don't know all the things he did or didn't do, but I think was one of the most jeopardizing mistakes he made. Yeah,
especially the way it went down, because he opens up to you about it. He ends up saying a lot of detail, and gets dinged for it. So then later, when he tells Cliff and Nicole, he does not say much detail, which is another point in your favor to be like
later down the road in that argument, the whole Tommy lie, it all came full circle, and I just kind of used it against him.
Yeah. But did you ever, you said it didn't really occur to you that the veto would be used to put Holly on the block, but did it ever occur to you to put up Nicole as the pawn instead of Cliff? You had used Cliff a couple times.
I loved Nicole, and on a personal level, I didn't even want to see her on the block. I didn't want it on a personal level or game level. There was no reason for her to be jeopardized, and I didn't want to see her go anywhere. I really didn't. I loved her to death. She was like the sister I never had, and if I had her, I was like, there's not a chance that I'm putting you on the block this week.
Well, she wins the veto and decides that she wants to take Holly out. It takes a little bit of convincing, but she eventually gets Cliff on board. They make a deal with Tommy. Tommy does reveal to them about Christie. What was your reaction to the knowledge about Christie? Like,
it made sense. It connected a lot of dots in my head. All those times when Tommy would never come away from Christie, it all makes sense. It all added up pretty much.
Yeah. So they make a deal with Tommy. You end up eavesdropping and overhearing.
This is the most important eavesdrop, I think.
Yes.
This is.
And not just because it allowed you to lie about his plan, because kind of similar to Taco Tuesday, like there are some people that are, and Nicole says that the initial lie was not really what convinced her. It was what happened after. But it also, like, it told you for sure that this was happening, that they were keeping Tommy, which allowed you to get into the mindset and the mode to start working to save Holly.
We got to fight.
Right.
Holly, yeah.
And on top of that, it gave you a lot of really great ammunition to use against Tommy. In
combination with his live Christie,
right?
And all this, it just all added up. And so I was going to go to law school. I was supposed to be an attorney. And in one of my criminal law cases, we studied. So in no way, blanket statement, in no way, shape, or form am I going in depth on the O.J. Simpson case or my personal opinion on that case. However, the O.J. Simpson case, in terms of law school and being a student and focusing on criminal law, teaches a lot about how being an attorney can potentially influence a judicial decision. And I didn't care if Cliff or Tommy believed my lie.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to the O.J. Simpson case, it was not about getting them to believe me. It was about creating enough doubt in their mind that they felt as if Holly would be the better option. And whether or not that was the decision or not, my goal here was just to create doubt and get inside their head and make them think, because they were worried that Tommy was actually working with me or that he would want to work with me. So my goal was to make them think his intentions were to actually work with me and make them second guess it, and just to get in their head enough to where they would want to keep Holly.
Yeah. And so this was, unfortunately, the whole day was blocked. The second Nicole calls the house meeting, the feeds go down for the rest of the day. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not gonna say anything. I don't work the cameras. Clearly, I have a lot of things about me on the feeds that if I had control of them would not be there. But I didn't get. I've heard that. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, this was interesting too, because we had our live show in New York. We do like a live podcast, and the feeds had been down all day, so we had no idea who was going home, and it was pretty crazy. But this culminates in a big back and forth between you and Tommy. Tommy is killing me, and
you say that you're your own person.
I don't respect your game.
Yeah.
I mean, this must have been. I know this was very draining for Cliff, who is going to spend the next couple of days kind of like in a haze. But like, what can you walk me through like what this was like?
Yeah.
For you?
So my thing was, I am a very passionate person, and I came down and I was in the RV and I was telling them about, I hadn't told Holly yet at this point what I was doing, because I know she probably would have talked me out of it, and rightfully so. It was a very risky move. Mm-hmm. And she was the one on the line. It was her life on the line. It was very risky, but I know what I heard in that half-hour room. I was like, they're going to keep Tommy. We have no choice. We have nothing to lose. I either send it and Holly goes home, or I don't and Holly goes home. Like, there's the same outcome, so I might as well roll the dice.
Yeah.
And my thing was, I wanted, when I told Holly after I talked to them in the RV, I said, hey, this is what's going on. She goes, if they call a house meeting, don't be aggressive. Don't be an asshole. Don't come across too intense. You don't want to be looked at as a bully, blah, blah, blah. So going into that house meeting, I was doing my best to keep my composure. And that's where Nicole was like, that's not the Mickey I know, because that's not the Mickey. And I was doing it in my head. I didn't realize that I was coming across as like a bullshitter, because I was listening to Holly. I was thinking about how I was going to proceed. I know America loves Tommy. I was like, I can't be aggressive. I don't want to look like an asshole to Tommy. So I was trying to keep it together. But at the same time, it was like, I should have, in hindsight, been myself and just been as aggressive as I needed to, because then when Holly and I were just as aggressive as we normally are in the bathroom is what ultimately flipped.
Yeah. And talking about like Tommy's probably biggest mistake is, according to Nicole at least, sitting there in the chair, not coming to her.
Not competing and not contesting it.
Mm-hmm. Because that according to her probably would have changed things. Yep. But it doesn't. Ultimately, a deal is made. Holly is going to throw the HOH, and they're going to keep her. They do keep her. They play the HOH, and it's one that it seems like Holly has a good chance to win.
She was destined to win that.
Yes. But she has promised that she's going to throw this one. And so I can say that you watched the episode. It definitely, after the...
Is this on the feeds? Is this HOH on the feeds?
It was, but it was so quick that I think it was a little bit off and on. So maybe not in its entirety, because it was so fast, and sometimes you don't catch like the beginning or the end. But we definitely saw some of it, and we saw on the episode you talking about encouraging Holly to throw so that she would be vulnerable.
So this was one of those things I was asking because we were actually having a conversation, but she couldn't hear me over the water. So they had the water spraying water down. It was a fire, like literally a fire hydrant, spraying water. And she was asking me, like, when should I throw it? Like, should I do it now? Like, should I wait? Like, what should I do? I was like, well, if you're going to throw it, throw it. And they take statements and they make it seem as if I'm like up there barking at her, commanding her, throw it, throw the competition, throw it. We're up there talking about when she should throw it, if she should throw it. I also don't know if they showed this on the feed, but when Cliff fell, he was literally begging Holly, please, Holly, please, 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 Holly, please, Holly. So there's a lot going on more than me just telling Holly to throw it and commanding her around, if that makes sense.
Yes, you did say in the diary room though that like this was something that you wanted to happen.
Because if she won the HOH and Cliff or Nicole won the veto, I was gone. I was taken for it, without a doubt. So selfishly, I know that if Nicole won HOH, she doesn't vote. If Holly and I are on the block and Cliff is the only vote, more than likely going to take me over Holly.
Might be my favorite move of yours.
Why?
I love that. At least I loved how it was portrayed in the show, that you were encouraging her to throw this with the knowledge that it helped your game over hers. And she did.
Again, we are competitors, and I love Holly to death, but there's one winner and 15 losers, and Holly and I both were never going to just sit back and let the other person win over the other. We were competing against each other just as much as we were competing against the other people in the house. Yes, we wanted to get to finale night together. However, I came there to win, and I know that if it was down to Cliff voting against Holly or I, he would have taken me. And if Holly was safe, I would have 100% gone home. So it's a very selfish move, and I'm glad you respect the game. You respect the gameplay because that was strictly game. On a personal level, that's where like my frustration after winning you're in, a thought that I blew it came from, because I thought I let her down, and I was so sick to my stomach that she may have potentially thrown away her game, and I would have stayed when she could have easily won that HOH. That's why I was crying tears of happiness, because I was like, everything is all right in the world. She's safe, I'm safe, we're good. But in the moment before, having no idea who's going to win the veto, again, looking at the odds, looking at running the numbers and the statistics, there's a greater chance of me going home if she wins HOH.
Very important question. You said in the episode, in the diary room, that if Cliff and Nicole had evicted Holly instead of Tommy, that if you had won the veto the next week, you would have used it to evict Cliff, essentially for betraying you. Do you think that that is what you would have done?
I don't know, because time in the Big Brother house, a lot can change in a day, an hour, a week is a long time. So seeing the dynamics between me, Tommy, Nicole, and Cliff living in a 4-person house with Holly gone, that would have single-handedly been the most influential thing. In that moment, when I was that frustrated that they were going to flip, probably said that. And if I could say that I would stick to it, I don't know, because, again, a week living in a house, in the Big Brother house without Holly and with Tommy, Cliff, and Nicole after they just flipped, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah. If you had to guess who you would have evicted, who do you think it would have been?
I think I would have evicted Cliff, honestly. And the reason being, I would have respected the game move on Tommy's end by being able to flip and get 2 people in a Final Four to flip. On a personal level, I would have loved to see Cliff in Final 2, and I said that before. But looking at it on a game level, Cliff, by not even voting his sole vote separately from Nicole, he was not playing his own game, which is something he always preached. He was not staying loyal to a Final Four, which is something he always preached. He was not staying loyal to me. And Tommy had an incredible game move by being able to flip Cliff and Nicole. I would have respected those things in Tommy's favor and not in Cliff's, and I probably would have evicted Cliff.
All right. So,
However, if Holly would have won HOH and this whole Tommy lie had not have happened, and it was Nicole and Cliff on the block, I probably would have evicted Nicole and kept Cliff.
Yeah. I talked about how I felt like it was a big mistake for Cliff to sort of facilitate the deal with Holly because it essentially gave Nicole the HOH, which left him vulnerable.
Hanging out to dry.
Not that it would have mattered because he never would have beaten you in the final 3 HOH, but
Right.
Still. Anyway, Nicole's the HOH. This is when Cliff is going to make the deal with you to have you take him to the final 2. He then admits it to Nicole, goes back to you, and makes sure to clarify it's actually not that I'm taking you to the final 2, it's that you're taking me to the final 2. There's a lot of like back and forth where like you're now promising that if you win the veto that you're going to evict Holly, and Holly's promising that if she wins she'll evict you. It's a big mess here.
It's a cluster. It's a mess, and it was sloppily done. It was not. Cliff was tired. He was exhausted. He was over the game. I think he was fatigued, and he was relying on deals to carry him to final 2. But it was so mind-boggling. I'm sitting there in the target room, and he's telling me, so last night, look, I said that I would take you to final 2. But I'm not going to. However, I still fully expect you to take me to final 2. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, is he really telling me this? And then he's going to tell me that I have to use the veto to evict Holly. And here's what really, really, really pissed me off was when he said to Holly, you're not allowed to compete in the veto, but we will give you permission to compete in the veto. But if you win, you have to evict Michie.
It's funny because I know that Holly was really offended by that too. Like if you watch it, the way that Cliff is talking to Nicole about it beforehand is he's like, I feel really bad about making that deal to have her throw the veto. Like let's give her an out so that she's able to win the veto, because I feel really bad about that. So like his way of doing that was like, okay, you're allowed to win, but only if you evict Jackson. And so then she of course agrees. And a really funny moment after she has a conversation with you, she goes upstairs to talk to Cliff and Nicole, and they're like, did you break the news that you were gonna evict him? And she's like, yeah, I mean, it turns out we're both thinking pretty similarly.
And downstairs we're sitting there like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding? You really think we're gonna evict each other? What?
Were you concerned at all that this was not necessary? Because ultimately it just came down to the competition anyway.
But at the same time, I'm trying to cover my own ass, because I'm going to agree to whatever Cliff says prior to the veto. So here's my thing. If they had not lied, I would have never, or even wavered on going back on keeping Holly. I would have never agreed to a deal with Cliff and then gone back on it. I would have told him straight up, look, if I win the veto, I will take Holly. Let's compete for it. If you win, I understand you can take whoever you want to, but I'm not going to agree to a deal and then backstab you. However, after the whole Tommy incident happened, all deals were off. I'll agree to anything under the sun. That doesn't mean shit to me. I'm sticking true to Holly, and that's it. However, if you're going to tell me that you will take me to final 3, what happens if I don't win the veto? I'll agree to it, sure. Yeah, why not? Because if I don't win the veto and you do, and you're voting, I want you to think that I would have done the same for you. But that's not the kind of big brother I wanted to play. That was a big brother that I felt like I was forced to play because they had started going back on deals.
One thing I was wondering was, because it did make sense to a degree for you to agree to the deal, but I didn't feel like it made sense for Holly to pretend that she was going to evict you, because the only reason she would pretend is so they allow her to win. But I mean, she's going to try to win, and if she doesn't win, then she doesn't win. And if she does win, then she's won, and it doesn't matter anymore. Right. So really, on her end, by making that deal, it's really just only going to like make them annoyed if she does win, because why did she bother to make that deal? I know that you encouraged her to make that deal. Was there any intentionality on your part in terms of like, hey, if they're mad at her, then that's not bad for me.
Yeah, it was like, if we're going into jury, if I make it, I'm at final 4, there's a very strong chance I could make it to final 2. So at this point, if Holly wins and then goes back in her deal I've already pissed off quite a few jury members. If I'm sitting next to Holly and she has a couple that are mad at her, I'll take any vote I can get. So her agreeing to a deal and maybe upsetting Nicole or Cliff and going back on it isn't necessarily the worst thing for my game either.
Was that on your mind when you encouraged?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like if Holly won, then she's put in a predicament of she's either going to evict me or she's going to go back on a deal with Cliff. And if she's going back on a deal with Cliff, and I know how Cliff feels about me, then that might mean that I get his vote locked in, kind of thing.
Yeah. All right.
Again, so Holly was very much playing her own game, and I was very much playing mine. And we were playing each other's game, but we were also very separate at the same time.
Yeah. So you end up winning the veto.
Right.
And this is around the time that I really started, pointing this out, that it was pretty shocking the amount of physical, like very physical competitions in the end game for this season. And I think I may have told you this in the backyard, but maybe I didn't. That like the percentage of physical competitions in the end game has dramatically increased over the last couple seasons. From Big Brother like 16, 17, 18 was like 15%, from week 8 on. And then in 19 it went to 30%, and then in 20 it went to like 50%, and this season it was like 60%. So like dramatic increase over the last few seasons, and that's part of what went into Cliff's error, thinking, oh, mental competitions are coming, because that's generally how it's always been, apart from like the last 2 seasons. And then when it came down to it, he basically had no chance to win any of these final competitions.
We genuinely all thought it was going to be more mental comps, myself included. I was worried. That's why I wanted to get Jess out. That's why I wanted to get Christie out. And these mental competitors, I was scared. But it's good to hear that it started a few seasons ago. You know what I mean? Because we have no idea what competitions are around the corner. We have no idea whether they're going to be physical, mental, all the above, strategic. But I will agree with you. They were physically, challenging, but there was also a lot of mental and strategic elements to them. Sorry.
I like to classify them as like mental comps, skill competitions, physical competitions, and then like crapshoot, like luck competitions.
Yeah, the time near river, things like that.
And that Final Four veto was, it had like 3 questions, but they were super easy. There was definitely a skill component in terms of like launching the ball, but it was very heavily physical in the sense of like running back and forth for the ball, operating the like slingshot to begin with or whatever it was very physical. And so ultimately you are going to take this one home, and that is basically going to be it for Nicole and Cliff's chances. Cliff, obviously, in particular here. Nicole now has to win in the final 3 HOH if she wants any chance. But first, you have to break the news to Cliff and Nicole that Cliff is going to be going home, and Nicole is not pleased. So I want to talk about the way that you broke the news to Nicole, because basically you said that none of this would have happened if you guys had just, stuck to your word at Final 5, if you had not, toyed around with getting rid of Holly. And that's the reason that we lied. I'm a man of my word, and that's the only reason I broke it, is because you guys kind of broke it first, essentially. And Nicole did not really appreciate that explanation. She kept saying stop, just
you don't have to. She was like, you don't have to give me an excuse. You're going to stab me back anyways, this and that. When in reality, I wasn't. Holly and I wanted to get to Final 4. We knew what we were signing up for, just like they did. Y'all are signing up to compete against Holly and I. We're signing up to compete against Cliff and Nicole. Whoever wins, fair and square. The other 2 are on the block. pitch your case. Who is going to help my game going into Final Three most? Bam, done. Very, very game level. And I know it's Big Brother, deals, whatever. It's part of it. Quit being so sensitive. You broke your word. What to do? But Holly and I were very intent on getting to the Final Four and then just duking it out. Let's fight for it, fair and square. And I know it's not Big Brother, but that's what Holly and I were wanting to do. So for me, my point was not saying that I wouldn't have that. I wasn't saying I would have evicted Holly if they hadn't done that. My point is saying that I would have never agreed to evict Holly and then gone against it if they hadn't done that. I had every intention of taking a shot at Cliff and Nicole, and they had every intention of taking a shot at Holly and I. But we would have never agreed to deals and then gone back on them had they not broken that original handshake. We just never would have made any deals. There were supposed to be no deals in Final Four. We were going to get to 4 and then fight it out. You know what I mean? So that explanation was just trying to explain to her, like, look, I'm not saying I wouldn't have evicted you or Cliff. I'm just saying I wouldn't have told you I would have evicted Holly and then gone back on it had this whole Tommy thing not happened.
Did you ever consider, especially as she's saying, like, please stop, just like own it, essentially? Did you ever consider just being like, okay, like, you know, like, you're right. Like I did break my word and I did get you, you know, and that's ultimately what I have to do here.
It just felt dirty. It just felt dirty and I didn't like it. And that's, when I shake some tan, I mean it. And in Nicole's world, she's from New York and she's expressed to me, she's like, you know, it's, hey, you either
stab him in the back.
Get him first. And then that's that. It's very cold hearted and just, all right, that's done. Where I'm from or where Cliff is from, it broke my heart having to do that. Honestly.
Yeah, because it was definitely interesting because it did feel like this could theoretically make or break your game, because Cliff is going to use this as a tactic. He's going to say, I'm not going to vote for you and I'm going to poison the jury against you. And it was a tactic, but it was also something he was considering.
Right.
He was wavering. And if he does go to the jury not for you, then, you know, you, even without his vote, you still would have won, but you can't be sure like who he might have been able to sway in the jury roundtable. Especially they had a lot of respect for him. So this could have been very, very dangerous for your final endgame
it was
process.
A 50-50 coin toss. But there's just no way I would have ever turned my back on Holly. So
right. Well, not in the sense that you should have evicted. Obviously, you never should have evicted Holly, but in the sense of like how you approached Nicole, how you approached Cliff. We've seen a lot of people lose the game, Paul in particular, by not like owning up to like, you know what? Yes, I betrayed you. Like I played you. I did it for my own benefit. I'm sorry. And it did feel like, it felt like for a moment there, it felt like, oh my God, this is going to happen to us again.
Yeah. So I didn't think of it that way. And that's insight where, you know, again, I'm a fan of the show, but I don't look at it in that much detail in the sense where I should have coming in here. I should have studied these episodes and watched live feeds like I was studying for an exam. Because that never crossed my mind in the sense of, because in my mind, truly, I was telling Nicole the truth. So I was telling Nicole the truth. I wouldn't have made a deal with Cliff and gone back on it had the whole thing with Tommy not happened. I just wouldn't have made a deal. I would have rolled the dice and if Cliff won, then I guess I'm going home.
Yeah. And I think that messaging did get a little confused as well, where like it kind of like it did kind of sound sometimes like you were saying that like none of this would have happened.
Like a cop out. Yeah.
Yeah. Where like, which like almost like you're implying that maybe you would have considered taking out Holly if not for the whole situation before.
Yeah. And I never would have taken out Holly. I just never would have made a deal and gone back on it. Our deal was to get to 4. And then after 4, there's no more handshakes. It's just competitions.
So ultimately, I think it probably is part of what costs you Nicole's vote, but you do retain Cliff's vote, which will be enough. Cliff is going to go home. He was not fond of your goodbye message. What was the thought process behind that one?
So they recorded it right after he threatened to take me to jury. So I was pissed.
You were so pissed. Oh man. He was like, you probably want to throw me over that balcony right now.
I wish the feeds had access to the DR because I went on a tangent in that room. And again, it hit a nerve with me just from my childhood and my upbringing about just, I don't know. I get using the strategy, but you're not going to get, if by threatening me, you're going to make me do the opposite. Honestly. And
he was worried about that. He like waited until the last, but he was like last resort because this is probably going to backfire.
Yeah. And, but he was also saying stuff like, he cashed in his 401k and that he wanted his family out here, but they couldn't afford a plane ticket. He was throwing a lot of personal
That was his
guilt
soft
on me
sell.
too. And I was like, dude, I'm here for my own family too. Don't guilt me here for a game. We came here to beat 15 other people and to take the money so 15 other people don't have. Like, we're all here for the same reason. We all have bills. We all have rent. We all have medical expenses. We all have outstanding dues. We all have things in our lives that we have to financially take care of that we're here for. And then when the threat came on top of that, it was just fire under my ass. And I went in there and then, all right, do you want to record his goodbye message? Good job. Thanks, guys.
I think my favorite part of that whole thing was when you were really mad, you told Holly about it. You were like, yeah, he just threatened the jury vote. And Holly's reaction was like, oh no, he would never do that. No.
Yeah, she knew good and well he was going to do it.
She was like, she was so happy.
Yeah, I don't blame her because it's like, all right, great.
But she was pretending not to be. It was so funny. It was so fun.
No, she doesn't get nearly enough credit on the episodes for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, she just talked to me for 3 hours, so hopefully people
get a little insight.
Yeah. So Cliff goes home. It's now, basically the game is basically over at this point. Apart from winning the competitions that you do, you're going to win part 1. Holly takes home part 2, at which point Nicole is basically out of it. However, Nicole does cite, again, like her week talking to Holly is going to end up swaying her vote. She was very pro Jackson, even in the midst of like being really frustrated with you. It seemed like she was even more pro you than Cliff was at points. But it does seem that Holly worked very hard in the last week to do jury management with her, which seems to have worked. Is that something that you caught on to?
Yeah, there's a lot of times I'd see them talking, and they were bonding, and I knew what Holly was doing, and she was working with Nicole, and I knew that at the end of the day, it wasn't so much like I knew Nicole would take me, and it was kind of one of those things where it's like, it's not so much like why bother, but just it's like I know that Holly is. If Nicole has her way, she would take Holly. And, I knew I would take Holly, and I was fairly confident that Holly would take me. So it was like, okay, Holly, do your thing. I'm probably not going to get Nicole's vote anyways if it's us in the final 2. So, do your thing kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I definitely noticed them spending a lot of time together.
If Holly had been evicted, really at any point, who would have been your second choice? Well, I guess would you have taken Cliff to the end if it hadn't been by Cliff's hands?
Yes. And if Cliff would have been evicted and it was down to me or anyone else other than Holly or Cliff, it would have been Holly, Cliff, and Nicole.
Mm-hmm. So you take Holly. I imagine there's not really any hesitation in that choice. Yeah. What were the jury votes you expected to have against her?
Against me, meaning who wouldn't vote for me?
Against her. So who's voting for you?
Okay. Jack, Nick. I thought I would get Tommy and Christie. I really was confident. When Tommy left on his right before he goes, "You fucking got me, you piece of shit." Mm-hmm. And he gave me a hug and laughed. So that told me right there. I voiced to Nicole and Holly, I think I was worried about getting Tommy's vote, but after he said that, I was pretty confident, and I knew he respected game. I knew I would get Tommy, and I thought I would get Christie because Christie also respects game, and we were coming after each other so much. And Christie is also the kind of person like, well, if you got me out, then you deserve my vote, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I knew I'd get Jack, Nick, Tommy and Christie. But I didn't know where that fifth vote was going to come from. And I was worried, honestly, that I would lose to Holly, because when I started looking at the remaining jury members, Sis left saying that I'm a fucking liar, I'm fucking dead to her, and that she fucking hates me. Quote unquote, her words, not mine. Jess left on my HOH, and she was very much a fan of me until that week and felt very blindsided and betrayed. Kat, definitely going to get Holly. She's voting Holly 110%. Cliff just told me that he was going to campaign against me and that I would lose his vote. And then Nicole is leaving, and she's been spending a lot of time with Holly, and she very well might vote for Holly too. I was legitimately concerned that I was not going to win against Holly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was possible for sure, especially with Kat in the jury. Like, that's, if I had been you, that would have been my like absolute like.
Yeah, but the thing with Kat being in the jury was it was balanced out with Jack and Nick being in the jury. Mm-hmm. Because they're both very passionate people. They're both loud, and they're also very convincing with their words. And I knew that I had Jack and Nick in my corner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
See, the reason why I thought it was possible for you to lose is because of the jury segment we got when we found out about Nick and Kat's relationship. And I was like, well, that might have swayed him. That might have changed his mind. It didn't, and it didn't matter ultimately because you did get Cliff's vote. But a part of me did think that that could be what kills you.
It was a legitimate possibility. Which then, after hearing about, I thought the same thing when we heard about, because they voted,
right?
And then we found out about Kat and Nick, and I was like, whoa. Shit! Who did he vote for?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So they cast their votes. This is when the pre-jury comes out, and this is when they bring up some of the controversy. This was a crazy finale in that this is sprung on you right before the votes are read, and then they read the votes, and you probably are the most upset winner of Big Brother I have ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I was never briefed on anything. Mm-hmm. I had, at any point in the house, I was never aware of any of the things being said. The only time that I was ever told anything was when I said the thing about David. Mule kicked that motherfucker's teeth in, and that was a violent comment. And it was a violent comment, and they never said that, my banishment decision was leading to speculations of racism. It was just, you said this about David, who's the only African-American male in this house. Keep in mind, in today's day and age that we live in, not only is that a violent threat, but it may come across certain ways. And that's all it was. So I had zero idea. I had no idea that people were referencing as a misogynist. My actions and my level of aggression in there, when people say that they see everyone equally, yes, I have areas I need to work on, but I truly see everyone equally, male or female, race, not a factor. Sexual orientation doesn't matter. I have a lot of areas I need to work on in my aggression and the way that I speak to people when I'm passionately worked up or upset. But I truly looked at everyone as a competitor. We're on an equal playing field, male or female, black or white. I would get just as mad at someone, whether they were a guy or a girl, whether they're white, black, straight, gay, it doesn't matter to me. I see players. I see competitors. I don't see color or race or gender or sexual orientation with anyone in that house. And it was a very hard pill to swallow. That, in combination with the fact that I never even thought that I would really get to finale night. I'm wearing the same clothes I moved in just to go full circle because all of my suits were back in Nashville. And, I'm 24 years old, potentially about to win $500,000. The shock factor, the excitement, the fear. And again, having no idea the things that I'm being called racist for. If I would have known the allegations of where racism was coming from, I would have enjoyed the win. You know what I mean? But it's I have no idea. And I've seen season 15.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the montages, the 11-minute long clips of everything that they've said. And they're calling us on finale night like a racist season and saying that the things I said and did were considered racism. My mind immediately goes to worst case scenario in season 15. So when I'm walking out there, I have no idea that where those claims are coming from. I don't know. I was never briefed on it. And I'm terrified. The episode ends with me telling my mom I'm not a racist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I'm not. I'm not racist. So for me to hear that on finale night, at that point I was like, you know what? Just keep the money. Literally. I don't even just keep the money. It was a very hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. So would you say, like, looking back on it, that you feel like, I mean, it seems like there are definitely points throughout the season that you feel like you have learned from and that you are hoping to grow. Is this one of those points as well, or do you feel like this is entirely off base?
The entire season as a whole, and everything in life is a learning experience. It's an opportunity for self-growth. I will always apologize and be the first one to admit when I'm wrong. I've watched the entire season. I've watched all of the clips and seen the things that were said that were in question. I've seen the receipts of everything. And, you know, I have a lot of areas I need to work on, and I'll take full responsibility of that. I will say, in terms of finale night in particular, if in life in general, if you were going to approach someone with an issue or ask someone to explain themselves on things that have been being said, especially for the past almost 4 months, that they are oblivious to, I would have at least liked to have known what was being referenced, so I could make a true apology, and so I could not necessarily explain things, but at least know what it is I'm apologizing for. To make those claims and spring it on me, yes, in one sense, it's giving me a platform on finale night to explain myself and to own up to anything that I would like to own up to. However, I have no idea what's been said. I'm in the complete dark here. And I'm just getting hit with two very big terms: racist, misogynist, without any point of reference. How am I supposed to give a genuine apology or own up to things and know that where I've gone wrong? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So that face is me walking out here having no idea what I'm about to get hit with. It was frustrating. It was disheartening, because it's like, if it was a big enough deal to bring up on finale night, I would have appreciated, like, hey, here's A, B, C, D, E, F, G that you said. Here's why it is being taken this way.
Yeah. I mean,
I never knew.
Big Brother needs a reunion show, I think, is one of the takeaways here.
I think that's actually a great idea. I've always hated how they don't have a post-finale show.
Mm-hmm.
It ends with confetti. That's it. Done. Wait until next summer.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
very quick. It's very like, all right, we're done.
Yeah. And I've always thought the same thing. It's like, Survivor does it.
Yeah.
You know, Bachelor does it. Let the people that have been outside of the house for 2 months, you know, the 5 pre-jury members, the people that are in jury, let us all hear it. Let us hash it out. It'll give you good content. I swear people will tune in.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But it was a fun season. It was a fun summer. There's a lot of things to grow from. And at the end of the day, I have my friends, my family that know me. Holly knows me. And if those things were applicable, especially the term racist and misogynist, she of all people would not be with me. There's a lot of areas I need to work on.
Yes, and in no way, shape, or form am I denying anything I said or did. I will take full ownership and responsibility for my wrongdoings. But those are two big phrases that I think get thrown around very loosely, but they hit hard. They carry a lot of weight at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So, what are you up to now?
So I'm going in. This is what my whole goal and passion was coming out to Los Angeles, was the fitness and nutrition industry. I want to help those that feel like they can't help themselves, especially in terms of finding happiness within themselves and to grow as an individual. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they don't have someone there and that they're in a corner with no one behind them. There's a lot of things I haven't stored. There's a lot of things I'm working on. It's going to take time. It's going to take weeks, months, if not years, to develop things the way that I want to. But I'm finally given a platform where I can help people's lives get better. And I'm looking forward to doing that and to seizing this opportunity and making it a positive one. A mistake once is a lesson learned. A mistake twice is a lesson lost. Add it to the list of Jacksonisms. But I've made plenty of mistakes this summer, but I won't make them twice.
All right. So one question I want to ask, and I try to ask this to every winner. You haven't watched all the seasons of the show, but in terms of comparing yourself to other winners, where generally do you think you would place in terms of like just game only, strategically, like best winners, middle tier, worst winners? Do you have any idea?
I really can't say, because it's like on a competitive level, I think I set the record for most competition wins.
Depends on how you count them, I think.
Yeah. How do you, okay. So, cause I want you, so explain, cause I've heard yes and no.
Yeah. Well, Janelle has, I believe it was 9 HOH and Power Veto wins combined in season 7. That remains the record for HOH and Power Veto wins. You, I believe, have 8 HOH and POVs.
I have 8 HOH and POVs.
Right. So you're one behind Janelle there, but of course you also have, some extra like twist competitions that you won, and stuff like that, which generally don't count toward the total. Like the total that most people try to keep track of the most is HOH and Veto, because that's the most consistent across all seasons. In season 7, there weren't any extra competitions for Janelle to win, so it doesn't really make as much sense. Plus, there's also, I mean, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, you can look into like percentage of competitions won. And that's something else that she has really going for her, because there weren't as many competitions in season 7. But you're definitely up there. You're tied with Paul in terms of, he also has 8 HOHs and Veto wins. And then if you do want to count some of the other wins and stuff like that, you're definitely up there. And then also in terms of, I think, amount of competitions you won in a row, that might also be up there. Your streak from winning the field trip to HOH Veto HOH was like a long streak of competitions that you won in a row. Yeah. So you're definitely in the top tier for competitions, for sure. Yeah,
but there's more to it than just competitions. There's a lot of strategy and social things that go into it. So I would probably just go very modest and say low middle, lower tier, maybe low middle tier. Middle tier being based off the sense of my competition wins, but I don't know. I don't think I'm the best judge for that, because again, yes, I get to see myself, but I also have not watched 100 days of live feeds. All I've seen is the season. And I lived those 100 days. There's no way in hell I'm going to watch 100 days worth of live feeds back.
Yeah.
And so that's just out of the question. That's a ridiculous thing for me to expect myself to do. But I played the best game I could. And, I did whatever I had to do. I adapted when I needed to, and I came there to win. And I came there to beat 15 other people. And the way I saw it was, I'm on the field for 100 days. And I was in my element. I love to compete. And I'm very much, I don't have much sympathy or passion or compassion for people on the field. I'm very ruthless, and I'm a fighter. And I will do whatever I need to win. and to take care of those that I care most about that are near me. So some people that jives with them, some people it doesn't. Some people would put me at the very top, some people would put me at the very bottom. So wherever I fall, I don't know, but I'm a bad person to ask, I guess.
What if I asked you to rate yourself as a player out of 10? Because that's what we're going to do at the end of this week. We're going to rate all of you out of 10 as players. 10 being like one of the best of all time, dominated the entire game, never in any danger. 5 being average player. 1 being like you can't even tie your own shoes.
I would be like I'd say 5.3, 5.3.
5. Oh, going in decimals.
5.3.
There you go. 5.3. I think that's underselling yourself a bit, but I'm not going to spoil my own rating because
we'll see. Well, I'll be on the lookout to see what comes out. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending so much time with me here.
Thank you, Taryn, for having me. I appreciate it, man.
Where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram. I don't have a Twitter. Don't even ask me. I'm not making a new one. It is a horrible place, and I'm getting bashed left and right. So Twitter is out of the question. Instagram is at Jackson_Michie, Michie. And I look forward to hearing from anybody and everybody that's got some input. Send them my way. Try and check my DMs as often as I can and reply whenever I can, but I can't catch them all.
All right, there you go. You can find me on Twitter at ArmstrongTaryn, Instagram Taryn_Armstrong, and twitch.tv/Taryn Armstrong. Thank you so much for joining me for all of these post-season interviews. It's a lot. Believe me, I know because I'm doing them.
Yes, you are. Yes,
but
you are.
Make sure you tune in to the final roundtable where we will wrap up the season at the end of this week. I will tweet out the details for when that will be. We'll also have a survey out there so you can rate and vote for all of the different people and questions and all that stuff. So make sure you check all of that out. Thank you so much for joining me once again. I'll see you next time.